What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 2KP. Chapter 26 The Crown is Broken. The new King of Hueco Mundo. King of Hueco Mundo, have you felt the power of New World? Tojo asked. How could this happen? Such a thing could happen. Beilagang sighed as he looked at his own death. He was forced back bit by Daochung's spiritual pressure, and was still in a state of brain failure. Boom, a majestic and infinite spiritual pressure poured directly towards Beilagang. In an instant, Tojo Ayaya's terrifying spiritual pressure completely pushed back the purple-black smoke of the death sigh, and then the majestic spiritual pressure completely enveloped Beilagang. The force that was enough to shoot down the sky and cause the earth to collapse was suddenly fully borne by Beilagang alone. Beilagang tried hard to keep his figure and not let himself fall to his knees. He is the King of Hueco Mundo, the King of the world, how could he kneel down to Shinigami? He is a god who holds aging in his hands and does not even pay attention to the sun, moon and stars. Daochung saw that Beilagang was still struggling to hold on, and couldn't help but praise. The average Daxu will be completely crushed by this spiritual pressure at this moment, and the weakened Daxu are not qualified to get close. You are still here now. Hold on, I really underestimated you before, King of Hueco Mundo. The next moment, Daochung's eyes condensed, and more powerful spiritual pressure than before was released. Originally, Beilagang was almost unable to hold on under the torture of Daochung's spiritual pressure. It was only the King of Hueco Mundo's confidence that forced him not to kneel down. However, Daochung's suddenly aggravated spiritual pressure impact caught Beilagang off guard. Boom. Under the suppression of this spiritual pressure, Beilagang knelt down directly. This is impossible. Why is this something I can't look up to? Beilagang was still roaring in his heart, unable to accept the fact that he was completely suppressed. Beilagang used all his strength in an attempt to escape from the control of this spiritual pressure. People often fear an escape when faced with things they cannot accept, but they often don't know that what they are avoiding is the rare reality. In the process of releasing spiritual pressure, Tsunayashiro was able to deal with it with ease. He was talking to Beilagang and talking about the truth. Speaking, Touchy further intensified the release of spiritual pressure. Boom. Beilagang's whole body was pressed into a big pit by spiritual pressure. Beilagang's whole body was lying on the ground, his face pressed against the sand. This is the first time that Beilagang touches the ground with his face. It was the first time in 1,000 years that Beilagang felt such humiliation, but under the absolute spiritual pressure of Tojo Ayaya, he could not resist at all. The spiritual pressure of Daochung is still outputting continuously, like an uninterrupted light source that continuously hits Beilagang's body. Beilagang's body is like a gigantic gravity, carrying this huge mountain on his back. Apart from lying helplessly in the pit, I couldn't do anything. Brush, swipe, swipe. When Daochung used spiritual pressure to completely suppress Beilagang, Zomali and the 3 new Arrancars were not idle either. They directly solved Beilagang's former subordinates in Zai Palace. However, they still acted in a measured manner. After all, Daochung had the idea of gathering power, Zomali and the others did not kill wantonly, and even Noitro restrained himself. In addition to the weaker Daxu, there are other Daxu that seem to be useful to Toshiro Ayaya, such as the whale-like Daxu Shinan Po and the elephant-shaped Achuka's Daxu Nilj Part OK. Zomali and the others did not kill them all. The 3 Harribels had already believed that Sword City would definitely defeat Beilagang and become the new King of Hueco Mundo when they felt the power of Sword City. However, they did not expect that it would be so simple. Advertisement. This was the original King of Hueco Mundo, and the mist that erupted all over his body was enough to make it impossible for anything to get close to him. This invincible ability was actually easily broken by Tojo using spiritual pressure. Zomali couldn't help but raise his hands and shouted, "Long live Lord Daochung! Long live Lord Daochung!" Harribel and the others looked at each other and couldn't help but marvel at the terrifying power of Toshiro Ayaya. At the same time, they also felt that their decision to surrender to Toshiro Ayaya was correct. If he had not surrendered to Daochung, the consequences would have been the Beilagang in front of him, not to mention that the 3 of them were a bit weaker than the Beilagang. After Daochung withdrew his spiritual pressure, he looked at the embarrassed Beilagang in the pit with an expressionless face, and said, "Wangyu of Hueco Mundo, this is the power of New World, remember it with your soul." Tojo Ayaya then gave the last option. "Finally, shall I give you another chance? First, surrender to me, and then I will give you the power to enter a new realm. Second, be crushed to death by my spiritual pressure." Quote. Daochung will not begrudge Beilagang. As long as he does not surrender, Daochung will directly crush him to death with spiritual pressure. Espada's position can be replaced at any time, but keeping a rebel is automatically laying a landmine for himself. What's more, even if Beilagang was made into a Zanpakuto, it would still be far from being useful in high-end games. Beilagang's heart turned gray. When Daochung used spiritual pressure to trample his dignity as the King of Hueco Mundo over and over again, the little bit of confidence he had also disappeared. Ka! A crisp sound sounded, and the crown on Beilagang's head could not withstand the long-term torture of Tojo Ayaya, and suddenly a crack appeared. Then the sound of "Kacha, Kacha" sounded continuously, and the crown on Beilagang's head was completely shattered, just like Beilagang itself. Beilagang looked at the dilapidated Zai Palace and his former subordinates who fell under the swords of Harribel and the others. Seeing this, Beilagang slowly lowered his head and knelt down on one knee automatically. Tojo Ayaya also felt that Beilagang here was completely surrendered. In contrast to the original work, Aizen conquered Beilagang through Kyoka Suigetsu hypnosis, which always made Beilagang feel that Aizen could do without Kyoka Suigetsu. The illusion of winning. This is the reason why Beilagang was not convinced by Aizen from the beginning to the end. Therefore, Beilagang has always dreamed of regaining the throne, and even chose to attack Aizen when he was dying. And Tucci chose to use his absolute supreme strength to completely solve the aging ability that he regarded as invincible, coupled with the extreme pressure of spiritual pressure. This caused Beilagang to be engraved with the fear of Tojo Ayaya from the depths of his soul, and this effect was what Tojo Ayaya needed. Seeing this, Tojo Ayaya showed a satisfied smile and said, I accept your surrender. Okay, now let's start cleaning the Zai Palace. Toshiro Ayaya slowly walked up to the original high platform of Beilagang and sat down generously. There was no movement on Beilagang's face. He had changed from his previous arrogant attitude, and was filled with the loneliness of his failure and the fear of Sword City. Harribel stepped forward, bowed and said, Master Daocheng, what should we do next? Sitting on the original throne of Beilagang, Daocheng muttered, spread the news that the King of Hueco Mundo has changed hands, and at the same time select the powerful Daxu. I still have 6 positions left for the position of Espada. Chapter 27 Completely taking over Zai Palace, saw Apollo's amazement. Neutra discovered the blind spot, and there are 6 more locations. Master Daocheng, who does this Espada refer to? Neutra asked carefully. Tojo explained. Espada was selected by me after I completed the reincarnation from Hollow to Arrancars through Hōgyoku, and selected the outstanding ones with superior killing ability, and then ranked them according to the level of killing ability from low to high. The 10 Arrancars are called Espada. Neutra did not speak after hearing this, but made a circle with her tongue. Neutra still hasn't changed his arrogant character. Even though he has surrendered to Sword City, he still has the same attitude towards Arrancars, who is in the same position. He thought in his heart, the first name must be mine. After all, it is mine. Ranking by strength. Daocheng sat on the throne and spoke. After all, the number of people is not complete now. There are only 4 members, so we will not do the ranking for the time being. We will discuss it after the subsequent members are added. Harribel and Zomali looked at each other, including Beilagang who had just surrendered to Sword City Ayaya, and was also shocked by the huge idea of Sword City. Beilagang had just surrendered, but he didn't understand why Daocheng wanted to find Daxu. He asked, Master Dao Cheng, what are you trying to do to summon and find the powerful Daxu? Beilagang's words happened to be what Neutra and Zomali wanted to ask. These two had just returned to Daocheng's subordinates, and Daocheng had not told them about the future. Daocheng said, go and end this world full of lies. And create a new world. Daocheng's words were domineering and mixed with confidence and calmness. End this world full of lies. Create a new world. Several Arrancars still can't understand the true purpose of Daocheng. Even Harribel, who has followed Ayaya Daocheng for 100 years, can't figure it out. However, just follow what Daocheng said, go find the powerful Daxu and let them join Daocheng's subordinates. For his subordinates, Daocheng's will is everything. A few days later, the army led by Geo Weig returned to Zai Palace. Beilagang asked him to find out the identity of that strange and terrifying spiritual pressure, but he continued to investigate for several days and still found nothing. As soon as he approached the Zai Palace, Geo Weiger felt strange. According to the past situation, there must be a few Daxu led by Kokaks patrolling outside the Zai Palace, but now there is nothing outside. What happened to Zai Palace? What happened to His Majesty Beilagang? Geo Weiger couldn't help but feel strange. When he officially entered Zai Palace and walked up to it, Geo Weiger saw an unbelievable scene. Sitting on the original throne was a seemingly very weak Shinigami. When Geo Weig saw it, he immediately showed his claws and asked loudly, who are you? How dare you sit in Lord Beilagang's seat? When Daocheng heard Geo Weiger's question, he opened his half-closed eyes and glanced at the saber-toothed tiger Daxu, and then continued to close his eyes as if ignoring it. Damn it, ignore it, look at me. Geo Weig was very dissatisfied when he saw this Shinigami's actions, and immediately wanted to step forward and attack Knife City. Just when Geo Weig was about to rush forward, an old man who had been lowering his head grabbed the eager Geo Weig and said, stop. Who are you? Why are you blocking me? When Geo felt someone was blocking him, he turned around and asked. Are you Mr. Beilagang? Geo Weig said in unimaginably after feeling the old man's aura. Beilagang does not have the arrogance of the past, but instead has the consciousness of being a subordinate. Geo Weig said. Beilagang, sir, what is this? And how come you look like a human being? Advertisement. As early as shortly after Tojoki captured Kyoka Palace and issued an order to find the powerful Daxu, Tojo Ayaya used Hōgyoku to carry out an Arrancars attack on Beilagang. Behind Arrancars, Beilagang turned into a paunchy old man wearing a long white coat. With a gloomy face, Beilagang pulled Geo Weig and said a few words into his ear. After listening to Beilagang's description, Geo Weig's expression changed drastically. The original King of Hueco Mundo he originally served was defeated, and Shinigami sitting on the throne as the new King of Hueco Mundo. Shinigami became the King of Hueco Mundo. If someone had told Geo Weig before that a Shinigami would become the King of Hueco Mundo, Geo Weig would have thought it was a joke. However, this scene that seemed like a joke just turned into reality. Geo Uyghur stood there for a long time, but still chose to kneel on one knee in front of Daocheng. The Shinigami in front of him has become the King of Hueco Mundo, which means that he is an existence that even Balagang cannot defeat. If he persists in his obsession, he will be seeking death. However, the soldiers following Geowig didn't think so much, and they all started shouting. Who are you? What conspiracy did you use to defeat His Majesty Balagang? We don't recognize you as our new king. Shinigami with such a weak spiritual pressure should not try to take the position of the King of Hueco Mundo. Geo Uyghur quickly stopped him and said, Idiot, don't be impulsive. Daocheng, who was sitting on the throne, opened his eyes, and there was a chill in his eyes. Boom. The majestic spiritual pressure in Daocheng's body appeared again, and a huge spiritual pressure column instantly appeared on these rude guys. The locking precision of spiritual pressure is very powerful, without any leakage. Ah! In a short wailing sound, these Daxu were directly crushed to death by the spiritual pressure of Tojo Ayaya. What kind of spiritual pressure is this? I really want to study the structure of this spiritual body. Following Geo Weig, there are not only provocative idiots, but also a very excellent Hueco Mundo scientist Czar Apollo Grants. When he saw Shinigami sitting on the throne of the King of Hueco Mundo, Sal Apollo had already guessed the strength of Tojo Ayaya. I just didn't expect Tojo Ayaya's spiritual pressure to be so powerful. As a scientific researcher and a powerful Daxu, Sal Apollo also knows that he currently does not have the strength to analyze the City of Swords. Tsar Apollo also observed that the masks of these Daxu on the side, and even Balagang, had all been removed. Apart from a few powerful Daxu, there is still a possibility of autonomous Arrancars, but Daxu of a level like Sun is absolutely incapable of autonomous Arrancars. Sal Apollo was confused on the spot, and then showed his strong research interest. Previously, Thrall Apollo accepted Balagang's recruitment because of his strong strength and need to research materials, and became the current researcher of Hueco Mundo. At the same time, he is also the most powerful researcher in Hueco Mundo and an expert in developing all spiritual weapons. The meaning of his name is, playing with life in the palm of your hand. Chapter 28 Sal Apollo. A very good wage earner. Thrall Apollo was an alchemist when he was still human. Since his brother, who was a human general during his lifetime, often brought defeated people to Tsar Apollo as experimental subjects, he began to use humans to conduct various experiments. After the two brothers died suddenly for some reason, they became hollows, and Sal Apollo swallowed the souls of his brother and other experimental subjects. Later, after a long period of hunting and evolution in Hueco Mundo, Thrall Apollo gradually gained the strength of Vastad Daxu. Since Thrall Apollo often needs living materials for research, he is used to limiting his power in battles, so he rarely makes fatal attacks in general battles. Subsequently, after the existence of Thrall Apollo was learned by Balagang, he was recruited by the King of Hueco Mundo and became a researcher of Hueco Mundo. Daocheng looked at Sal Apollo, who was standing behind and kneeling with all the Daxu, and thought, I need to train him well, so that he can complete the work of Arrancarization for me. After all, it is practical for me to do it one by one. Trouble. Daocheng faced Balagang and asked knowingly, who is that Daxu at the end? He looks different from other Daxu. Balagang glanced in the direction that Daocheng said and replied, this Daxu's name is Sal Apollo. He is the researcher of Hueco Mundo that I recruited. Although he is a researcher, there is no doubt that he is vasto a great virtue of virtue. Daocheng saw that Sal Apollo was indeed very different from the ordinary Daxu. The size and appearance of his entire body were more human-like. It's just that the lower body is tentacle-shaped instead of feet, and the mask on Sal Apollo seems to be unique in the style of glasses. Although Sal Apollo had some guesses about the situation, he still had only a partial understanding of the situation. He never expected that he planned to go out with Geo Uyghur's troops to get some materials, but when he came back, he found that his boss had been replaced. Thrall Apollo never paid much attention to who the King of Hueco Mundo was. He only needed to provide him with sufficient information, and at the same time, don't disturb his own research. However, Sal Apollo was very surprised by Harribel's Arrancars. Based on his own research, as long as Daxu grows to a certain level, he will naturally become an independent Arrancar, which can improve the soul to a higher level. However, as far as he knew, in the entire Hueco Mundo, there was only one great hollow named Arturo Plateado who belonged to the autonomous completed body Arrancar. Earlier, he single-handedly attacked and almost captured Soul Society. However, he was sealed under the 46th chamber by Captain Yamamoto because he underestimated the enemy. Thrall Apollo is also trying to make his own Arrancar. Now when the research here has a little clue, he is surprised to find that so many Arrancars appear at the same time. Daocheng looked at Sal Apollo and asked with coercion, according to the introduction of the original King of Hueco Mundo, your scientific research level is very good, right? Sal Apollo said, a few times, and then looked at Toshiro Ayaya with a hint of tangle. Toshiro Ayaya asked, do you have any questions? If it is research, I will not interfere with you. Sal Apollo adjusted his glasses. With a Frankenstein-like expression, he said, yes, Master Daocheng, I regard you as my king, but I have a wish, can you answer it? Why did the Daxans under you, including the former King of Hueco Mundo, Mr. Balagan, become like Shinigami? Daocheng said calmly, it's very simple, you come with me. Daocheng left the throne, walked to the audience, and stood in front of Geowig. A small bead with an inconspicuous appearance appeared in Daocheng's palm. Advertisement. Geo Uyghur was kneeling down and bowing his head. When he saw Daocheng standing in front of him, he said, Daocheng. Master Daocheng, I have surrendered to you already. Gio Uyghur looked at Daocheng appearing in front of him, and was immediately frightened, thinking that Daocheng wanted to clean him up. Daocheng reassured. Don't worry, this is just a new power I gave you. Sal Apollo had already listened to Daocheng's words. He came forward from the end, looked at a small bead in the palm of Daocheng's hand, and said, Master Daocheng, what is this? Hōgyoku. The power I discovered belongs to the new world. It is a god's tool that forcibly breaks down the boundaries of the soul itself and enhances the status. Toshiro said slowly. Hōgyoku floated in front of Gio Uyghur. Under the control of Daocheng, the small beads instantly planned a cube to completely wrap Gio Uyghur's body. After a while, the broken spirits of the small cube scattered and moved away, and Gio Uyghur appeared in everyone's sight with a new look. Gio Uyghur broke away from his previous appearance of a saber-toothed tiger and turned into a black-haired boy with golden eyes, wearing a saber-toothed tiger skull mask on his head and a braid. This is. Gio Uyghur looked at his hands. How did I become like this? And what is this sudden increase in spiritual pressure? Hōgyoku has forcibly increased his strength by becoming a virtual Shinigami, which is also known as Arrancars transformation. In addition, your majesty and some of your former companions are already like this. Toshiro said to Gio Uyghur. Gio Uyghur knelt down and asked Daocheng, Master Daocheng, I have one more request, please allow me. Toshiro Ayaya saw through everything and said, you want to continue to follow the previous king, right? I agree. From now on, you will obey my orders as the subordinate officers of Balagang. Thank you, Lord Sword City. Although Gio Uyghur is arrogant and likes to sarcastic others, he has always maintained a calm and loyal side to Balagang. Daocheng turned to Sal Apollo and said, this is the reason why Daxu Arrancars transformed. You should understand it. After a while, I will teach you the secrets of Daxu Arrancars. Arrancars will turn you into you and complete it for me. In addition, Hōgyoku will be left to you to study. Toshiro said while looking at Hōgyoku in his hand. After all, Hōgyoku was awarded to Tojo Ayaya by the system, and it was exclusive to Tojo from the beginning. No matter what other people are doing, they can't take Hōgyoku away, which is why Toshiro boldly handed over Hōgyoku to Sar Apollo. Sal Apollo looked at the Hōgyoku handed to him by Sword City, and his eyes suddenly shone, showing infinite interest. After all, he had already seen the power of Hōgyoku just now. Such a sacred thing, Daocheng, was actually given to him for study with confidence and boldness. Sal Apollo was instantly grateful to Daocheng and also had extreme reverence for it. Sal Apollo took Hōgyoku, knelt down on one knee and said, yes, great king. Daocheng turned around calmly and said, come with me to Sal Apollo. I will perform Arrancars for you next. By the way, I will explain to you the skills of Arrancars. Chapter 29 Eyes of the Soul King. Attack of Grimmjow. After a while, Thrall Apollo appeared with a new look. She has short pink hair, golden pupils, obvious lower eyelashes, and a mask in the shape of glasses. Daocheng said, you should have completely mastered the process of Arrancarization, right? Sal Apollo. Sal Apollo lowered his head and replied, yes, Master Daocheng. I have mastered it perfectly. This is really a breathtaking technology, breaking through the boundaries of the soul itself. This is, what kind of magical skill is this? Ah. Daocheng smiled slightly. That's it. After all, there will be many things for you to study in the future. What? Sal Apollo said after hearing Daocheng's words, Master Daocheng, will there be many such artifacts for me to study in the future? Naturally. Daocheng replied, who knows what the system will prescribe for him in the future, and Toshiro also knows that his research capabilities are far different from those of Urahara Kazuki and Aizen in the original work. Just one Arrancarization, Daocheng has been researching it for nearly 100 years. From this point of view, although Toshiro Ayaya's scientific research ability is quite satisfactory, Toshiro despises tedious research. After all, Daocheng is a man of action, not a scientific research madman like Nirvana and Sal Apollo. What he cares about is the results rather than the research process. Of course, giving things to people like Sal Apollo for research is an excellent way. Moreover, the items produced by the system are exclusive to Sword City and cannot be plundered by others. When Daocheng returned to the throne and sat down, there was a rare movement from the system that originally sounded once a year. Daocheng. Ding. Congratulations to host for achieving the achievement, Void Knight Palace, and gaining the eyes of the Spirit King. Close black lens bracket. Daocheng. Is this the power of the Spirit King? The moment he received the system reward, a force emerged in Daocheng's eyes, as if a warm current was flowing in Daocheng's eyes. Tojo Ayaya closed her eyes, waiting for the perfect integration of power in herself. The next moment, Daocheng opened his closed eyes. At this moment, Daocheng's eyes were very different from before. The black eyes of Mei Tojo disappeared and were replaced by 4 black pupils, with the whites in the middle forming a strange diamond-like pattern. Toshiro boldly activated the power of his eyes. In an instant, the edge of Hueco Mundo that he could not see was clearly reflected in front of his eyes. Toshiro could even clearly sense the past that had happened here and the future that was about to happen. In other words, this is an eye that can see through all past and future. Daocheng felt the power of the eyes of the Spirit King and said with a smile, so, it's such an interesting eye. I used to be unable to see things. But from now on, everything in the past and future in this world will all be reflected in my eyes. The world that I cannot know no longer exists. Dot 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 dot. Ling Wang Palace, Li Palace. Hayasube Ikebeu, the leader of the Royal Agent Zero Squadron. He was given the name, I Monk, by the Soul King, and was also changed to, true name calling Monk. He was the original namer of all things in the Soul Society. Hayasube is extremely loyal to the Spirit King and obeys the Spirit King's wishes in everything, but at the same time, he also obeys the will of the 5 noble ancestors and is the person who protects the Spirit King. However, Hayasube is loyal to the existence of the Soul King. He does not care about who the Soul King is as an individual. All he cares about is a wedge that maintains the 3 realms. At this moment, he suddenly seemed to sense something, and then a Shunko came to the inner palace of the Spirit King in an instant. Advertisement. The main hall of the Soul King Palace is the Soul King Palace. It floats deep in the Amadasanda Road and has 4 floors in total. The Soul King, the wedge of the 3 realms, is buried here. Hayasube Ikebe cautiously approached the Soul King crystal, and then he discovered a shocking fact. The Soul King's eyes were missing at this moment. The Soul King's eyes fell to the lower realm. Hayasube looked at the Soul King's empty eyes, couldn't help but sit down, and murmured to himself, it's not like the 5 nobles did this, and there are no signs of intrusion in the Soul King's palace. Hayasube held the brush and secretly speculated, what is going on? Is it the Spirit King's will that is driving the changes in the 3 realms? Dot 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 dot. The perspective returned to Hueco Mundo. A Daxu in the form of a deer is running in an endless virtual circle. She has to avoid the pursuit of 6 Daxu behind her. The leader is a Daxu in the form of a leopard that looks very agile. Dust was billowing behind him, and a Daxu wearing a big hat roared, stop. Ha! The deer-shaped figure jumped down a hill. Boom! The leading leopard Daxu used the ring to turn and instantly appeared in front of the deer-shaped Daxu. The other 5 Daxu behind him also followed closely, attacking her from the front and back. The deer-shaped Daxu condensed a red virtual flash at the antlers and blasted it at the leopard Daxu. When the leopard Daxu saw this, his eyes froze, and he also opened his mouth wide and condensed a red virtual flash to face him. Boom! The deer-shaped Daxu's false flash was directly shattered by the opponent's false flash, and the virtual flash condensed by the leopard-shaped Daxu remained powerful after defeating the opponent's virtual flash, and directly hit the deer-shaped Daxus on the body. Ah! The deer-shaped Daxu let out a scream, and then fell to the ground. The deer-shaped Daxu thought in his heart, the weak are devoured by the strong. This is common sense in Hueco Mundo. It seems that I have been devoured by these guys. Is my journey in Hueco Mundo over? A leopard-like figure walked up to her and made a disdainful sound, so weak. Is she a female? The deer-shaped Daxu groaned helplessly. After being directly attacked by Zudian, he could not move even half a minute. Daxu from behind surrounded her and asked, Grimmjow, do you want to kill her? Or do you just devour her? No interest. Leopard Daxu curled his lips in disdain and said, I have no interest in killing weak guys. Devouring such guys is simply a shame. You can do whatever you want. Quote. Daxu, who was 5 behind, said in surprise, then you will let us devour her. Leopard Daxu said impatiently, I told you to let you figure it out on your own. Weak guys can't arouse my interest at all. This leopard Daxu is undoubtedly Grimmjow Jakajik, who was originally ranked 6th among Aizen Espada. The 5 great hollows following him are Grimmjow's subordinate officers in the original work, Xiaolong Kufang, Eldorade Leonis, Nakim, Ilford Grants, D. Roy. When D. Roy saw Grimmjow, who was much thinner than them, he was about to target him, but Grimmjow took the lead and ate the right side of his head. Xiaolong was shocked by what happened in front of him, but he also realized that Grimmjow was the strong man they had been looking for a long time to lead them. On behalf of the other 4, he invited Grimmjow to join them. Although Grimmjow disapproved of this, he still let them follow him. As a result, the 6 great voids formed a strange team, with the goal of evolving into the largest void, Stod, to hunt other voids in Hueco Mundo. Sudden, the sound of stones falling to the ground came from not far away. Huh, who is there? A weakling hiding his head and tail. Grimmjow said loudly. After hearing Grimmjow's provocation, 2 female Arrancars immediately jumped down from the cliff on the side, pulled out their Zanpakuto, and said with a fierce expression, Huh. Who are you calling weak? Chapter 30 Grimmjow was crushed. These 2 female Arrancars are Harribel's subordinate officers, Francesca Mira Rhodes and Sunsun. 2 Arrancars had just been transformed into Arrancars from Sword City, so they naturally felt arrogant in their hearts. Seeing that Grimmjow, a Daxu whose spiritual pressure was weaker than his own, dared to mock him as a weakling, he immediately lost his temper. They all jumped down from the cliff and drew their Zanpakuto towards Grimmjow and his gang. What level of hollow is this? Where are their masks? And what is the Zanpakuto in this hand? Xiaolong Kufang said as he looked at the 2 Arrancars suddenly. Grimmjow said disdainfully. No matter who she is. No matter what condition her mask is in. No matter what level of Daxu it is, just wait for Lousy to completely destroy it. Grimmjow looked at Mira Rhodes and Sunsun and judged on the spot that these 2 Arrancars were worthy opponents to kill. He pawed the ground and prepared to jump up and fight the 2 female Daxans. Mira Rhodes, Sunsun, you are too impatient. Harribel slowly walked out from behind and taught her subordinate officers. But Lady Harribel, the leopard form Daxu in front of you is indeed not something you can deal with. Even if you have passed Master Daochung's Arranccar, you are still no match for this Daxu in front of you. Harribel said calmly. Harribel prepared a fighting posture and said, the 5 Daxu following him will be dealt with by you. As for the Daxu that looks like the leader, I will deal with it. After Mira Rhodes and Sun heard what Harribel said, they also chose to listen to her and said, yes. Harribel followed up with a reminder. Master Daochung's reminder, have you not forgotten it? Well, instead of killing them, just beat them until they can't get up again. Mira Rhodes shook her shoulders and said. When the 5 Daxu behind Grimmjow heard that the 2 female Arrancars despised them, they said angrily, beat us until we can't get up again. Then let us tear you apart first. Mira Rhodes and Sun saw the 5 Daxu rushing towards them at full speed, and at the same time they released their Zanpakuto. Bite her away, Golden Lion General. Hang her, White Snake Princess. Mira Rhodes and Sun suddenly changed drastically. One's body became huge and a black sword appeared, and the other's lower body turned into the shape of a giant python. The scene in front of him once again refreshed Xiaolong Kufang's 3 views. Shu can also liberate the Zanpakuto. What is going on? Sun smiled and said, what's going on? I'll explain it slowly later, but now, please lie down first. Xiaolong, Kufang and other 5 Daxu. ... You seem to be a very powerful person, right? Although you are a female, the aura you exude is undoubtedly that of a strong one. Grimmjow looked at Harribel and said in a prying manner. Harribel remained silent and slowly pulled the knife out of the sheath behind her back with one finger. At this time, Sun and Mira Rhodes had already returned to fight with Xiaolong Kufang and other 5 Daxu. Grimmjow glanced at the battle taking place behind him, analyzed the functions of the swords in the hands of the 3 men, and said with full fighting spirit, are you also going to free your Zanpakuto? Come on, let me see you. With your strength, I can kill you without mercy. Harribel responded to Grimmjow very calmly, sword liberation. Who said I need to free the Zanpakuto to deal with you? Advertisement. Grimmjow said. What? Harribel seemed to have a winning chance and said naturally, don't worry, there is no need to free the sword. The next moment, both sides acted simultaneously. Grimmjow swung his claws and collided with Harribel's Zanpakuto. It's over for you. Harribel completed what she had not yet finished speaking and slashed hard with all her strength. No. The alarm bells rang in Grimmjow's heart. He couldn't resist such a powerful force at all, and was swatted away by Harribel's Zanpakuto like a child. Grimmjow was quickly knocked away. In the process, he worked hard to adjust his body, burst out spiritual pressure, and relied on the leopard's flexibility to twist and land safely. You were knocked out by me, can you still stand? With Akuka's level strength, Harribel said, looking at Grimmjow's state. Boom. Harribel exerted force on her feet, and the sand behind her was instantly kicked up. At the same time, Harribel rushed towards Grimmjow like an arrow from a string. Damn it. There is no chance to breathe at all. This guy is not simply strong, he is like a monster. Grimmjow cursed in his heart. However, Grimmjow belongs to the type that becomes more courageous the more he fights. He is keen on challenging powerful opponents under equal conditions and purely enjoys the fun of fighting. Harribel pressed forward step by step, which aroused Grimmjow's desire to fight. Come on. That's it. Grimmjow looked at Harribel's impact and did not dodge. Instead, he held up his body to face Harribel's attack. Harribel was a little surprised when she saw Grimmjow rising to the challenge despite knowing the gap. This high-spirited fighting style was a bit similar to Neutra who had previously surrendered to the City of Swords. Harribel turned around to avoid Grimmjow's claw attack, and then used her spiritual pressure to slash at him heavily from the side. Boom. Under the spiritual pressure Harribel brought up, a huge explosion of spiritual pressure occurred. Whoosh. Grimmjow was directly hit by Harribel's attack, flew backwards from the smoke of the explosion, and fell to the ground helplessly. Are you so strong? Stand up. Keep fighting. Grimmjow roared. Harribel walked out of the smoke like a queen and said, that leopard-shaped Yachukas, you have passed. Do you want to continue to fight? Grimmjow gritted his teeth and said, damn it. Grimmjow is the Daxon who evolved from Jillian. He is very familiar with the rules of Hueco Mundo. The defeated Daxon will become the nourishment for the winner. But I haven't even experienced a decent battle, so am I going to die? At this time, Sun and Mira Rhodes had already transformed into their former forms and appeared behind Harribel. Grimmjow's eyes narrowed, and the 2 Daxu had all changed into their previous appearance. Could it be that Xiaolong Kufang and the others had already? At this time, Sun looked at Grimmjow's miserable state, covered his mouth with his long sleeves and said in a mocking tone, ah, all of your followers have fallen too. Sun, the opponent has already fallen, there is no need to use these words. Harribel said. Sun put down his sleeves and said, yes, Lord Harribel. Harribel asked the 2 of them, where is the female Daxu who was chased by these 6 Daxu before? Mira Rhodes looked around, stretched out her hand and pointed back, saying, that deer-like shape is so big and empty. She is still lying there. It seems that the injury is still a bit serious. Chapter 31 The Sacrifice of 5 People. Grimmjow's strongest move. Harribel slowly walked over where Mira Rhodes pointed and came to the deer-shaped Daxu. The deer-shaped Daxu said feebly, are you here to devour me? Before Harribel could answer, the deer-shaped Daxu seemed to accept his fate and said, well, it's better to be swallowed by you than to be swallowed by other disgusting Daxu. Mira Rhodes interjected at this time. Hello. Is this your attitude towards your savior? Also, when did we say we were going to devour you? The deer-shaped Daxu struggled and said, Although I am a female Daxu, I am still the weakest among them, but I still know the rules of Hueco Mundo. What are you going to do? Harribel said. You are our new partner. Companion. I'm a companion. The deer-shaped Daxu couldn't believe his ears. There was actually a female Daxu who accepted a companion in Hueco Mundo. What is going on? I was indeed saved by you, but I didn't ask for help from you, and I won't be grateful to you. Mira Rhodes seemed to be unable to bear the deer-like attitude, and scolded. You were obviously saved by us, why are you still so arrogant? Although the deer-shaped Daxu fell to the ground, he still said unforgivingly, what did you say? Sun hurriedly tried to smooth things over. Shut up, you two. But let's talk about it, you two are very similar in your cheeky and informal attitudes. After Sun said good things, Luxing Daxu and Mira Rhodes started a wave of dissatisfaction again. What did you say, Sun, which side are you on? At this time, Harribel suddenly became more vigilant and said, don't talk yet. There seems to be some movement over there with Daxu who was just defeated by us. Mira Rhodes said in disbelief. What's going on? Sun and I just said that we beat them to the point where they completely lost their ability to fight. Harribel said. But something is wrong. The spiritual pressure of the other 5 is gradually declining, but the spiritual pressure of one of them, Daxu, suddenly rose sharply, as if it had just successfully progressed to a higher level. What? I was beaten to this point by Lord Harribel just now, but I can still evolve. Sun opened his beautiful eyes and said, and my companion's spiritual pressure has declined, is it possible? Harribel stood back up and quietly waited for the movement on the other side, while saying, that's right. Just now, the leopard Daxu devoured part of his companion's body, thereby achieving the evolution of the soul. Quote. A few minutes ago, looking at the other 5 voids lying on the ground, Grimmjow made a sound of reluctance. At this time, Xiaolong Kufang suddenly said, I think we should give up, Grimmjow. When Grimmjow saw Xiaolong Kufang and other Daxu who were traveling with him showing their intention to retreat, he said angrily, what did you say? Advertisement. Xiaolong Kufang fell to the ground, and his condition was not much better than that of Grimmjow. He said, how many years have passed since we acted together? I'm afraid I can't remember. Another horned Yachukas, Ilfert Grants, said with determination, we have already realized that we cannot become Bastard. If we continue to hunt now, it will be too late. I can't feel the power at all. It's boring. If you want to give up, you just want to be killed by a few people who ran out of nowhere in this place. It's up to you. I will continue to fight. Grimmjow forced himself to hold on. Want to stand up? Xiaolong Kufang suddenly felt sad at this time and said, yes. But if you want to fight, please eat us before continuing to fight. If a part of his body is eaten by a Daxu of the same race, he will completely stop evolving. Quote. Xiaolong Kufang continued, we cannot become Bastard. The result is already clear. Our evolution ends here. I say this is the realization we have made. In the end, is becoming Bastard whether virtue will become another level of virtuality has probably been determined from the beginning. From the very beginning, the 5 of us were destined to only reach Akukas, and you, Grimmjow, are destined to continue moving forward. You must not fall here. Xiaolong Kufang, Adored Leonis, Nakim, Ilfert Glands, and D. Roy all said together, that's it, please eat us. Grimmjow. Harribel said in surprise, I originally wanted you to lie on the ground for a while before looking at you, but I didn't expect you to stand up. The corner of Grimmjow's mouth still had the flesh and blood of his companion, and he stared at Harribel with a look that desperately wanted to win. What's that look in your eyes? Do you want to defeat me? It's impossible. You should have felt it just now, right? Even if you evolve a step on the spot, you are still far from my opponent. Harribel looked at Grimmjow. In an attacking stance, he drew his Zanpakuto again and said. Grimmjow raised his claws, and giant blue spiritual pressure claws were condensed on them. Grimmjow's cold eyes were hidden behind his sharp claws, and he said coldly, look, no matter who you are. Whether it's a hollow, a human, or a Shinigami, as long as anyone looks at me with contempt, I will definitely not do anything about it. Kill him mercilessly. Tear him apart completely. Harribel held the Zanpakuto in one hand, noticed Grimmjow's blue claws, and asked, what is this? Grimmjow said with a terrifying sneer, Leopard King's Claw. This is the strongest move I can use at the moment. Just be torn apart by the leopard's claws. Brush. Grimmjow waved his claws, and 10 rows of sharp claws rushed towards Harribel. Dang. Harribel placed her Zanpakuto horizontally in an attempt to intercept these spiritual pressure claws. Grimmjow saw this and shouted, it's useless. Even if you block it, the power of the Leopard King's claws will still knock you away. At this moment, he suddenly felt uncomfortable in his stomach, and Grimmjow could still clearly feel the flesh and blood of the 5 great voids in his body. They are all innocent guys, just watch. Your flesh and blood will witness my future. And I will be the king. Grimmjow thought in his heart. Fly. Boom, 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 the claws of the Leopard King knocked Harribel flying under a cliff. The cliff was shattered by the remaining power of the leopard's claws, and the dust seemed to rise above the dark night of Hueco Mundo. Apply another layer of tool. Chapter 32 Use absolute power. Complete defeat. Seeing the violent explosion in the distance, Mira Rhodes and Sun worriedly shouted, Lord Harribel. Sun is about to attack. The lion will bite that abominable leopard into pieces. Mira Rhodes said. That's exactly what I meant. A hungry python can even swallow an elephant. Sun responded following Mira Road's words. Grimmjow looked at the two female Arrancars and said disdainfully, what use are you two? Your boss was defeated by my leopard claw, what can you do as her subordinates? At this time, Harribel's voice came out of the explosion smoke. You mean you defeated me? I remember I haven't shown my true power yet, so that's what you call defeating me. The next moment, a figure emerged from the smoke, and Harribel reappeared in front of Grimmjow, unharmed. Grimmjow looked at Harribel, who was completely unharmed, and was very surprised. I didn't expect that after taking this blow, you would be unscathed. When did you have the illusion that I would be injured by your blow? Harribel said lightly. Since she has been acting with Daocheng for a long time, even the way she speaks has become a bit closer to Daocheng. What did you say? Are you looking down on me? Grimmjow showed his claws again and said, I said before, anyone who looks down on me, no matter who you are, I will destroy them all. Lose. Harribel held her Zanpakuto and said, you said I was looking down on you. Isn't that right? From the beginning, you have been looking down on me, so much so that you have the illusion that I can be defeated by you. Harribel threw a sword flower with one hand and held the Zanpakuto upside down with one hand. The tip of the Zanpakuto pointed at the ground and said, it seems that I need to use absolute power to completely defeat you. Quote. Conquer him, Queen Shark. At this time, Harribel's body exploded with spiritual pressure, and a huge wave like a pearl clam suddenly appeared under her body. The huge wave looked like a heart and surrounded Harribel and closed at the same time. Brush. A big sword stretched out from the middle of the huge waves and swiped downwards. The huge waves were instantly separated. The separated waves were like monstrous water columns, completely engulfing everything below. After liberation, Harribel's mask that covered almost half of her upper body completely disappeared, leaving only the armor-like mask on her neck and chest. She had dark blue lightning-shaped facial lines on her cheeks, and her attire turned into a short skirt-like swimsuit, and the weapon in her hand turned into a giant sword with sharp gill pattern. Grimmjow said, so what is this move? I have never heard of Hollow being able to use this move. Resurrection, the name of our liberation of the soul-cutting sword. After liberation, it means that our true power has been released. Harribel explained. Real power. Could it be that what you just exerted was not your full strength? Yes, but now I think it is necessary to completely defeat you and no longer have the idea of resistance. Harribel raised the giant sword and said. I will definitely tear you apart. Leopard King's Claw. Grimmjow roared upon seeing this, and directly used his strongest move. Grimmjow gasped and said. I just said that the Leopard King's Claw is my strongest move. And did you feel its power just now? And now, I will use this move to tear it apart. Your throat. Advertisement. Stand here and don't move. The Leopard King's Claw this time is even more powerful than before. I don't want you to be directly affected by this attack at zero distance. Grimmjow shouted, and at the same time, he moved 10 a row of sharp claws were thrown out, and the speed and power this time were undoubtedly faster than before. Harribel shook her head and said, boring. Harribel used her spiritual pressure, filled the giant sword with yellow spiritual pressure, and at the same time used the ring to appear directly in front of the Leopard King's Claw. Huang Lang. In front of Harribel's giant sword, the extremely ferocious Leopard King's claws were torn to pieces like glass. The claws could no longer maintain their original appearance and directly shattered into pieces of blue spirit particles, like snowflakes. Scattered in the air. Boom. The next moment, Harribel used the ring to appear in front of Grimmjow. Grimmjow. Swipe. Grimmjow was struck down by the giant sword before he had time to react. Grimmjow was shocked and said, this speed. This kind of range. After Grimmjow was hit by the giant sword, his body could no longer remain in the air. Grimmjow's murderous eyes retreated, his eyes blurred for a moment, and his body began to fall like a lead ball in the air. The last moment Grimmjow touched the ground, he looked at Harribel holding a giant sword in the air. Ah, I see, is it so powerful? ... Then, after Grimmjow hit the ground hard, Harribel also slowly fell. Sun and Mira Rhodes ran to Harribel. Mira Rhodes said arrogantly as usual, this guy, what do you mean by tearing everything apart, and the result is like this? Humph. Sun seemed to be a little more stable, and said, Lord Harribel. Now, should we keep them? Stay. Master Daocheng means to find the powerful Daxu and bring him to Zai Palace. I was still a little hesitant at first, but now, I am sure. This guy, he has the power to help Master Daocheng. The power used, Harribel said looking at Grimmjow. Also, I'd better take the deer-shaped Daxu next to me. As a female Daxu, she doesn't have strong strength yet. She is born with disadvantages in Hueco Mundo. She can also be my companion. Harribel ordered. By the way, don't forget the 5 Daxu under this guy. What, do you have to bring these 5 guys with you too? Mira Rhodes said with emotion. But she still did not disobey Harribel's words, and quickly tied the 5 Daxu, Xiaolong and Ku Fang, into a line, dragged them behind her and left. Sun was walking at the back, looking at Xiaolong, Ku Fang and the other 5 Daxu being dragged away, and thought to himself. Lady Harribel seems to have said before that this is what Zomali did when dealing with Neutra. Looking at it now, it seems like a good method of dragging and moving objects. Chapter 33. Announcement to Hueco Mundo. Daxu assembles. Zai Palace. Daocheng was sitting on the throne, and several days had passed since he entered the Zai Palace. After Daocheng eliminated some Daxu who disobeyed him, he took over all the Hueco Mundo subordinates left by Balagang. At the same time, relying on these Daxu to successfully spread the news that the king of Hueco Mundo changed hands, Tojo Ayaya will summon all the powerful Daxu in Zai Palace and give them new power. After the order was issued in Sword City, Harribel, Zomali, and Neutra took action one after another, and each set out to search for the powerful Daxu in Hueco Mundo. Balagang himself was unwilling to take action and arranged for several of his subordinate officers to spread the news. It is unknown whether they contributed. Toshiro Ayaya always turned a blind eye to the matter of Balagang not contributing, and did not choose to investigate further. After all, which giant would care about the little actions of ants? Sal Apollo regarded Hōgyoku as a treasure and returned to his research room without stopping to start studying it behind closed doors. In an instant, the news that a new king appeared in Hueco Mundo and defeated Balagang spread widely. Why was Balagang defeated? Isn't he very powerful? TCH, the arrogant Hueco Mundo will be defeated one day. If I had taken action earlier, the throne would have been mine. How strong is the one who defeated the king of Hueco Mundo? I don't know how strong it is, but it's called Tojo Ayaya. Doesn't it sound like a hollow thing? Who cares who he is? I only know that he claims that he will give power to those who come to Zai Palace. Then let's get going. For several days in a row, such conversations were everywhere in Hueco Mundo, and without exception they were full of shock at the change of ownership of the king of Hueco Mundo and the desire for new power. Slowly, ordinary conscious Daxu began to take action, moving towards Zai Palace in an organized and targeted manner. But there are also some who hold different opinions. Lord Nailu, are we going to Zai Palace? Peishway Kadish, who was wearing a termite-shaped mask, asked for his opinion after receiving the news. Let's go and take a look. I've met that Balagang before, and to be honest, he's the type one hate. We don't know what the new king of Hueco Mundo's character is yet, and we can't be sure about him until we meet him. Future actions in Hueco Mundo, analyzed a female Vastad with the body of an antelope. This antelope Daxu is the original third Espada Nilul du Odeshovank in the original work. At this moment, she is discussing the new king of Hueco Mundo with her two original companions. In my opinion, all irrational fighting is meaningless and stupid. I just hope that this new king named Tojo Ayaya is different from Balagang. Another big head, Daxu Dongchaka Bilstein, who was sitting next to Nailu, echoed, Sir Nailu is right. Nailu's antelope body stood up from the ground and said, let's go to Zai Palace now. Just as the three of them were about to set off, a thin figure suddenly appeared from behind the boulder. Hey, it looks like the feeling of spiritual pressure is very good. The thin figure turned out from behind the boulder and stood in front of Nailu and his party. When he saw Nailu clearly, his expression suddenly became strange. Why is it female again? Seeing the hostility on the other side, Nailu picked up a round gun and said, who are you? Are you going to start another unreasonable war in Hueco Mundo? It doesn't make me feel at ease every day. I was going on the road in a happy mood, but seeing you makes me feel as uncomfortable as seeing that yellow-haired woman. The man who was as thin as a bamboo pole was holding a huge crescent-shaped sickle and roared, be obedient and be stepped on by lousy. B************ D. This strange, thin figure is Neutra Gilga, who was sent out by Knife City to find a candidate for Espada. Nailu saw the sudden appearance of the strange guy and his cannibalistic eyes full of fighting intent, and said helplessly, are we going to have another insignificant battle? Peishway, Donchaka, stay away. Quote. Advertisement. HMPH. Is this the new king of Hueco Mundo? But the shoe that came to report was so weak. A virtual that was as big as a mountain grasped the shoe that came to spread the news. Hey, talk. Daxu squeezed hard, causing Baoshinshu to wail in pain. Yammy, you're going too far. He can't speak at all when you pinch him like this. A tall figure with wings on the side said. The mask on his face shattered, revealing part of a human-like face, but there were still some remaining mask coverings. He has short black hair, pale skin, green eyes, and dark green Arrancars lines on his face that resemble tear stains. Yammy didn't seem to hear what Ulquiorra said. He clenched his hand slightly, and the telegram in his hand was crushed to death in an instant. Yammy said disdainfully. Kill him, kill him. There are so many weak hollows in Hueco Mundo. He actually asked a hollow of this level to spread the news. It seems that this new leader of Hueco Mundo named Tojoki Ayaya the king is nothing more than that. Ulquiorra, you're not scared anymore, are you? Yammy, who was as big as a mountain, mocked. Ulquiorra said expressionlessly. No, but is fear also a kind of spiritual existence? What Ulquiorra didn't expect was that Balagan, the king of Hueco Mundo, would be defeated. Balagan's invincible aging ability would actually be defeated. Was he the new king of Hueco Mundo? I wonder if he can tell himself the meaning of the existence of heart and what soul is. Ulquiorra stood up and said, Yammy, let's go. Yammy followed and asked doubtfully, where are you going? Zai Palace. Ulquiorra's words still contained no emotion, exactly as usual. As a fan of Sword City, Zomali takes the mission of Sword City and goes deep into Hueco Mundo to find a powerful Daxu who is powerful enough to join Espada. This time, Zomali accidentally walked to the front of a hill. Zomali looked at the hill in front of him and said doubtfully, I remember there were no mountains here before. Why did the terrain change for no reason? When he walked to the front of the hill and took a look, Zomali was surprised to find that the hill in front of him was actually made of stacked hollows. As expected, the souls of these hollows had already been reduced and lost their vitality. In front of the empty mountain of corpses piled up like a hill, two men in black robes sat. This is a strange combination. One of them is an ordinary-looking uncle, and the other is an innocent girl. Moreover, most of their faces were not covered by masks, but a small amount of residue showed their identity, Arrancars. Zomali was surprised. Hueco Mundo actually still exists, and the Hueco Mundo has completed the Arrancar transformation without being promoted by Tojo-sama. Zomali stepped forward and said, "How amazing. Did you do all of this? You killed these Daxu." Unexpectedly, the voice on the other side sounded sad, as if he was extremely disgusted with this power. The uncle, Arrancar, said sadly, "No, those guys died on their own." The girl Arrancar was still lying in his arms and did not hear the conversation between the two people in front of her. The uncle-looking Arrancar slowly turned his head, looked at Zomali, and said, "You are the same, you look very strong." Zomali said with a pious attitude, "I am helping my king find companions." Uncle Arrancar said to Zomali, "What a coincidence. The same is true for us. Are the companions you are looking for also very strong?" Zomali said, "Yes, my king is the only one who can guide confused souls to the right path, and our companions are also very strong. If you want to know more, come with me to see him." Zomali finally wanted to know the name of the autonomous Arrancar in front of him and asked, "What is your name?" Coyote Stark, and Lillianette Gingerbuck. Chapter 34 Meeting the New King. Yammy's Provocation. As the news of the new king of Hueco Mundo spread, all the major voids in the originally dead Hueco Mundo took action. Some are curious and want to meet the new king, some are curious about the new power the new king calls, and some are overestimating their abilities and want to challenge. In short, the great Zus in Hueco Mundo are all heading in the same direction, Zai Palace. The perimeter of Zai Palace has been crowded with Daxu, and they are a little afraid of Balagang's reputation. These Daxu more or less knew the terrifying strength of Balagang, the original king of Hueco Mundo, and they were all curious about who defeated Balagang. Looking at the towering cloud-like gate, those Daxu did not dare to enter without authorization. They don't know the character of the new king, and they can't touch this thing casually. At this time, these Daxu looked at each other and whispered to each other. "Who do you think this new king of Hueco Mundo is? How strong is he? He defeated Lord Balagang, at least. So in the final analysis, can we get in? But I heard that the new king will make us stronger." Sitting on the throne, Toshiro Ayaya could clearly see the noisy scene outside Zai Palace and the large groups of Suyu through the eyes of the Soul King. Daocheng looked at the Daxu outside and smiled slightly, and said to the two girls accompanying him, "It seems that they are all impatient with waiting. It's time to go out and meet them." Daocheng said. Lori Ivan and Minori Maria opened the door of Zai Palace to welcome the guests. At the same time, Daocheng ordered, "Don't forget to inform Sal Apollo to come over and prepare for Arrancar." These two girls, Arrancar, are the two maids under Aizen in the original work, Lori Yvonne and Minori Maria. They were the two girls that Toshiro accidentally discovered when he was wandering around Zai Palace a day ago. The injured female Daxu. Out of curiosity and experimental attitude, Tojo treated their injuries, and also took out Hōgyoku from Sal Apollo and gave them Arrancarization. Just like in the original work, Lori Ivan has long black hair tied into a pair of ponytails, purple eyes, wearing a white short skirt and black over-the-knee boots. She looks like a cute girl Arrancar, and the other beautiful girl Nori Maria is Arrancar, a girl with short blonde hair, green eyes, and a somewhat boyish appearance. The act of taking care of an injured animal on the road, brought into reality, made the two female Arrancar completely dependent on Ayaya Tojo. Unexpectedly, after the existence of Daocheng, their star-chasing target changed from the original Aizen to the current Daocheng. Shaking, the tall and giant stone door in front of him made a hoarse sound and slowly opened, as if to welcome these Daxu to enter. Seeing the door open, Daxu outside the door was talking a lot. "Now that the door is open, do you agree to let us in? Then what are you waiting for? Come in quickly. I'm a little curious about what the new king of Hueco Mundo who defeated Balagang looks like. What kind of power will the new king give me?" Accompanied by extreme noise, Daxu's group came to Zai Palace in a noisy manner. At this time, Daocheng also came to the high platform in front of Daxu with two floor-mopping attendants. The three people who suddenly appeared on the high platform instantly attracted the attention of Daxu. "Look, who are those three people on the high platform? These three people don't have masks. Advertisement. No, it looks like the follower walking behind has a mask on his eyes. What's going on?" At this time, Daocheng was completely at the front of the high platform, and all the Daxu below looked at him together. Suddenly, a Daxu shouted, "Look, he doesn't even have a mask." Another Daxan muttered and shouted, "And his clothes. He's a Shinigami." Daxu below suddenly became restless. What's going on? Why is Shinigami here? Kill those three guys up there. Shu and Shinigami were originally opposed to each other. At this moment, Shu and Shinigami suddenly saw Toshiro Ayaya and had an instinctive desire to devour each other. At this moment, Sal Apollo arrived just in time. It's Lord Sal Apollo, the Shinigami above is doomed. Lord Sal Apollo, please quickly deal with that arrogant Shinigami above. Huh. Sal Apollo heard the voices in the Daxu group and showed an unkind look. The low-level Daxu below had no idea where they had offended Sal Apollo, and suddenly suffered from this oppressive feeling that invaded their souls. Boom. Sal Apollo immediately used ring turn and returned to the original place in the blink of an eye. Daxu around him had no idea what was happening. At this time, the bodies of the two rude Daxu slowly collapsed, and in an instant their bodies were broken into two sections. Why is Sal Apollo's spiritual pressure stronger than before? Not at our level at all. You see, Sir Apollo's appearance has also changed. What the hell is going on? Sal Apollo looked at Tojo Ayaya, who nodded slightly and acquiesced to what Sal Apollo did. Ha 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 ha. It's really fun. Over here. This loud voice lit up, and at this time, a giant mountain-sized virtual creature that had been crawling in the virtual group said. Having said that, he still didn't forget to pick up the Daxu on one side and threw it fiercely at Sal Apollo. Brush. Seeing the fierceness of the oncoming attack, Sal Apollo simply pulled out his Zanpakuto and cut the thrown Daxu in two. Boom. The body that was chopped into two pieces made a big hole in the back. At this time, Jushin Daxu's companion standing aside advised, Yammy. Don't cause trouble. Ulquiorra, it's rare to see an opponent who can let me vent my anger. This is exactly what I want. Yammy said with a laugh. The huge Yammy moved without any sluggishness at all. He rushed straight towards Sal Apollo like a cannonball. Under Yammy's body, the rising spiritual pressure directly flew away the ordinary Daxu next to him. Daochung continued to stand on the high platform, looking at everything in front of him calmly, and said, Does it look like a powerful Daxu has come? Sal Apollo. After hearing what Daochung said, Sar Apollo said respectfully, Master Daochung. What are your orders? Daochung said. Let this arrogant and ignorant Daxu truly experience the power of the new world. Sal Apollo adjusted his glasses, bowed and said, Understood, Lord Daochung. Chapter 35 The conflict in front of the throne. Thrall Apollo vs. Yammy. What did Sal Apollo call that Shinigami on the stage just now? Sir, Sal Apollo just called that Shinigami your lord. Could it be that he is the new king of Hueco Mundo who defeated Balagang? The Daxu people below started talking in a chaotic manner again, and Daochung didn't seem to see this at all. Tojo Ayaya was still standing calmly on the high platform, quietly watching the conflict between Sal Apollo and Yammy. Rumble. When Yammy collided with Sal Apollo used his small body to dodge it neatly. Yammy's body hit a group of unlucky Daxu heavily. Yammy patted his head and turned over to stand up again. Yammy roared loudly. Too weak. Too weak. While casually picking up the unlucky Daxu next to him and throwing them towards Sal Apollo like cannonballs. Run quickly. Such a powerful spiritual pressure has actually erupted in this place. We cannot be involved in a battle between Daxu at this level. The Daxu around the two people fled one after another, which just left a space for the two to fight. Sal Apollo avoided the big virtual shells bombarded by Yammy, while using the spirit instrument he had placed aside in advance to detect the data of the opponent in front of him. Huh, you can only run. It's boring. It's boring. Yammy accelerated the throwing in his hand while mocking Sal Apollo. It's not enough. It's not enough for my anger. Make me angrier. Boom. Sal Apollo caught the big void thrown by Yammy with one hand and threw it back casually. Sal Apollo said confidently, From now on, I have analyzed everything about you. Yammy heard Sal Apollo's words and asked, What are you talking about? Analysis. It's really troublesome. Sal Apollo said slowly. Early before, I had already arranged the spirit analysis instruments around me to fight with you. Sal Apollo pointed at his brain with his finger. Every time after analysis, the information from the instrument will appear in my mind. Your spiritual pressure strength, spiritual sun density or spiritual body strength will be reflected in every movement you make. After that, they will all be captured by the instrument. Sal Apollo intertwined his hands and slowly pulled out the Zanpakuto hanging from his waist with his backhand, saying, Now, we can declare it over. What are you talking about? Don't underestimate me, you trash-like ant. After Yammy heard Sal Apollo's announcement, she got angry and her body obviously grew a bit bigger, and stronger energy erupted from all over her body. Reiatsu. Yammy's demon-like face, the mask slowly curled up and then unfolded, as terrifying as an evil ghost who had just crawled out of hell. Boom, 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 Yammy's spiritual pressure was still rising, and the crimson spiritual pressure swept across the world, sweeping up some people in the Daxu group in the distance. Yammy took a deep breath and said ferociously, You made me angry to the extreme. You be ****************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** Sal Apollo adjusted his glasses and said confidently, "Didn't I tell you that the density of spiritual particles in your moves or the strength of your own spiritual body have been analyzed by me?" Boom. Sal Apollo instantly appeared in Yammy's blind spot during the action and said, "I told you that everything about you is under my control." Brush. Yammy's two arms were cleanly separated from his body, and blood splattered everywhere. Yammy still refuses to admit defeat and is still looking for the figure of Sal Apollo. Boom. Sal Apollo used the sound to turn for a moment, and moved from Yammy's blind spot to his eyes. Whether it's a human, a Shinigami, or even a hollow, the eyes have always been one of the most vulnerable parts of a creature. Sal Apollo, who is very small compared to Yammy, is standing in front of Yammy, and the tip of the Zanpakuto in his hand is pointed at Yammy's eyes mercilessly. Advertisement. The winner has been decided, Lord Thrall Apollo 1. I didn't expect that this big void that appeared out of nowhere could actually delay Sir Apollo for so long. Hueco Mundo is really huge. I didn't know there would be so many monsters at the same time. Listening to Daxu's discussion on the side, Yammy became furious and veins popped up on his face. Who said? Who said I lost? Yammy opened his mouth slightly and concentrated his crimson spiritual pressure. Ah, go to hell. After Yammy shouted, he sprayed out the virtual flash at an extremely fast speed. Because Yammy's body is so huge, the range of the virtual flash he fires is also extremely wide, making it impossible for ordinary people to dodge easily. Boom. Thrall Apollo used the resonator to move away. A powerful virtual flash shot out, with a hint of burnt smell as it passed through the air. No, the end of this false flash is us. No, this false flash is also targeting the Shinigami. Sal Apollo swerved to avoid the false flash, looked at the false flash's attack towards Daochung, and reminded, Master Daochung. The two mopping Arrancars behind Daochung were trembling when they saw the menacing virtual flash. Toshiro turned sideways slightly and said calmly, Bakudo's 81, Duan Kong. This powerful virtual flash bombarded the wall of air. Although it was a transparent barrier, the huge explosion caused by the virtual flash separated the Sword City and Kyushu behind into two worlds. Luo Li Yvonne patted her chest and said with longing, You are indeed Lord Daochung. Toshiro Ayaya didn't make a sound and gave a soft, hum. Sal Apollo, it's enough. This Daxu is qualified. You can give him the first Arrancar transformation here. Daochung slowly walked into the air and said. Sal Apollo said, But Master Daochung. He has not yet surrendered, so is it really good to decide to give him power? Daochung smiled slightly and said, His power was given by me, and I can suppress it and take back this power at any time. Daochung walked towards Yammy and said, New Daxu, are you satisfied with yourself now? Don't you want to improve your status? Yammy was still immersed in extreme anger at this time and didn't want to listen to Toshiro's words. He was about to grab Toshiro with one hand and said, Shinigami. I just want to kill that pink-haired B********** D now. If you want to be buried with him, you can come and give it a try. I have not recognized you as the King of Hueco Mundo. The moment Yammy's hand was about to touch the Sword City, Yammy suddenly felt that a huge mountain was pressing on his hand, and he couldn't break free at all. Boom. Yammy's hand was firmly fixed on the ground, and then the weight of the mountain slowly transferred to his whole body. Not only was his hands unable to break free, but Yammy's entire body was firmly pressed to the ground. Although Toshiro still retains his previous smile, the spiritual pressure emanating from his whole body shows that Yammy's entire predicament was caused by Toshiro. Ulquiorra couldn't help but be surprised when he saw Daochung's understatement. You can firmly control Yammy in the ultimate angry state with your spiritual pressure alone, and there is not a trace of spiritual pressure leaked. The new King of Hueco Mundo in front of us is absolutely terrifying beyond common sense. Boom, boom, Toshiro directly increased his intensity and used spiritual pressure to output. The terrifying spiritual pressure pillar directly suppressed Yammy and fainted. Daochung's eyes narrowed, as if he regarded Yammy as a 3-year-old child, and he didn't care about his speech, and then said, Don't you want to get the power to break the mask? To take the power to the next level? Yammy regained a little rationality at this time, but his body was still firmly pressed to the ground and said, Damn it. What little trick did you do? Despicable Shinigami. Toshiro Ayaya did not answer Yammy's question, but stared into Yammy's eyes and asked, So have you calmed down now? Daxu. Chapter 36 The Meaning of Heart. Ulquiorra's joining. Daochung pointed behind his finger and said to Sal Apollo, Prepare to Arrancarize him. Sal Apollo was surprised by Daochung's decision. Just now he was fighting against the Daxu in front of him, so why would he be helping him increase his strength in a few seconds? The Daxu in front of him has the weird ability to grow in size on his own, and as he grows in size, his spiritual pressure will also increase dramatically. If he undergoes Arrancarization, the power of his anger will be far greater than it is now, and he may not be able to control him by then. Out of such considerations, Sal Apollo cautiously asked again, Is Lord Daochung sure you want to Arrancarize him? Daochung said calmly, No need to worry, everything is under control. Yes, my king. After getting the guarantee letter from Daochung, Sal Apollo had nothing to say. Ulquiorra was shocked. The Shinigami in front of him really had the power to shatter the hollow mask. As a semi-autonomous Arrancar, Ulquiorra knew very well that just being a semi-Arrancar would be an absolute improvement for Daxu. If he were a complete Arrancar, the power it would bring would definitely be beyond imagination. Yammy didn't feel anything wrong with Sal Apollo's Arrancarization of him. Although he had just lost both arms, Yammy's arrogant character still had not restrained. His extreme self-confidence made him think that nothing could defeat him, so he naturally had no doubts about Daochung. Hearing that he could gain strength for nothing, he happily followed Sal Apollo and waited for him to perform Arrancar for himself. But in fact, Sword City didn't focus on Yammy at all. Sword City was focusing on the companion who had just entered the field with Yammy, Ulquiorra. Daochung slowly walked towards Ulquiorra and said, I believe you must be curious, why should I help your companions improve their strength? The answer is simple, it is absolute self-confidence in strength. This self-confidence is not the arrogance of sitting in a well and looking at the sky. Arrogance is not a self-hypnosis that is helpless against reality, but is completely powerful. Ulquiorra said. Then what do you really want to do when you become the king of Hueco Mundo? Daocheng explained. World, Ulquiorra, as a hollow, you should know that the unconscious Daxu is at best a lost soul that only knows to devour, and its own existence has no meaning, but I am different, I will give them the real mission. Ulquiorra said doubtfully. You know me. Every time Ulquiorra met Tojo Ayaya's eyes, he felt like everything about him had been seen through. Toshiro said with a bewitching tone. I know everything about the three realms. Don't you have something you want to know? Ulquiorra cipher. Is there really a channel for you to solve your doubts in Hueco Mundo? Shinigami, humans, don't you want to understand their true meaning? Advertisement. Since arriving at Zai Palace, Ulquiorra has felt that there is a clear difference between Sword Castle and ordinary Shinigami. What is it specifically? Ulquiorra cannot tell. Seeing that Orochira did not respond, Tachi lowered his head in thought, and then said, I am a Shinigami. This is an irrefutable fact, but what is the meaning of race? All of us are small souls in the three realms. The biggest difference between Hueco Mundo souls and Soul Society souls is their different places of belonging. Toshiro Ayaya walked up to Ulquiorra, stretched out her hand and said, Don't you want to deny the existence of something? Don't you want to understand the meaning of the world? Even your confusion about heart, you can also find out by following me. Believe me, for myself and for Hueco Mundo, I need the strength of all of you. Ulquiorra felt the appeal of Ayaya Tojo, and his words seemed to open up the knot in his heart. Since he couldn't find the answer, he might as well follow behind Tojo and discover the heart again in the future significance. Ulquiorra looked at Daocheng's outstretched hand and recalled his past. When Ulquiorra was first born, he was a pure white hollow with only vision among his five senses. He was somewhere in Hueco Mundo. Deep in the cave. Because their appearance and habits are different from those of their own kind, Daxu generally have a pitch-black appearance with glowing eyes and mouths. They are ostracized by the Daxu group. Later, Ulquiorra left the cave alone and wandered around Hueco Mundo. During his wandering, he saw a strange white bush and decided to bury himself in nothingness. As he walked into the object, the mask that originally covered his face automatically broke apart, transforming into a look similar to Arrancars' later appearance. It was in the process of being buried in nothingness that Ulquiorra began to become curious about the heart of human beings. As his experience increased, Ulquiorra became more and more curious. Why do people always choose to persevere without giving up? Instead of diving into nothingness? Why persist in launching challenges when knowing that perseverance is unnecessary? This problem has been with Ulquiorra to this day, and now a Shinigami has appeared who claims to be able to solve his problem. While Ulquiorra was thinking about it, he already had the intention to join, and now that he had the guarantee from Sword City, he had no hesitation. I am willing to join your army to find the meaning of human's heart, Master Daocheng. Ulquiorra knelt down on one knee and expressed his surrender to Daocheng. At this time, a sudden change occurred, and a powerful spiritual pressure shot up into the sky without warning. The source of spiritual pressure comes from the rear, where Sal Apollo gave Yammy Arrancars. Is it Yammy? As Yammy's companion day and night, Ulquiorra instantly recognized the owner of this spiritual pressure. Ulquiorra secretly thought something was wrong and said, Master Sword City, Yammy will definitely become a powerful force for you. Please forgive him for what he did before. I know everything, don't worry, Ulquiorra. Tojo Ayaya waved her hand and said, and the Espada Legion has officially gathered. Chapter 37 Furious Yammy. Espada returns. Ulquiorra was shocked by Yammy's Reiatsu performance. Is this really Yammy's Reiatsu? Just the complete shattering of the mask can increase the Reiatsu level so much. It's not like Ulquiorra has never felt Yammy's spiritual pressure before, but overall Ulquiorra can completely suppress Yammy. But the current quality of spiritual pressure is okay now, but what about the ultimate state of anger? Even Ulquiorra doesn't know if it can be the same as before. Ulquiorra glanced at Ayaya Tojo who was walking next to him. The seemingly ordinary Shinigami in front of him actually had the power to make two completely opposite things, Hollow and Shinigami, break through each other's realms. Daocheng felt Yammy's violent spiritual pressure and said to Ulquiorra, You must be curious, right? Why should I give it to the Hollow Arrancars who was the enemy just a few seconds ago? Daocheng looked at Ulquiorra, and then explained. The problem is very simple, that is, defeat him when he reaches this level, give him a new starting point, and then suppress him easily. This method can make him he has a better understanding of his strengths and positioning. Ulquiorra looked at Ayaya Tojo's still calm appearance and directly felt Tojo's absolute confidence. Even if he gave Yammy Arrancars the power, the Shinigami in front of him could easily suppress it. At this moment, a huge stone was suddenly thrown at the field behind, and Daocheng did not move. The moment the stone approached Daocheng, the spiritual pressure released by Daocheng directly turned it into small stones. Ulquiorra looked at Daocheng's understatement and thought in his mind, is this pure spiritual pressure protection? No, it is not. It is an invisible spiritual pressure slash, a slash that does not require movement and is simply controlled by thoughts. Turn your spiritual pressure into sharp blades to cut it. I didn't expect that Tojo's control of spiritual pressure would actually reach a point of perfection. Daocheng said calmly, Look, they are finished. Boom. A strong man suddenly jumped in front of Toshiro Ayaya, waving his arms and looking at the muscles of his body after being transformed into Arrancars. At this time, Yammy changed from his previous body as huge as a mountain to a burly adult man with dark skin and black hair. There are 4 strangely shaped protrusions on the top of his head, and there are symmetrical red Madara lines on both cheeks. The remaining virtual mask behind Arrancars is on the chin, shaped like a mandible, and the virtual hole is in the center of the chest. Seeing Yammy's appearance, Daxu in the audience reacted. Is this the big mountain-like thing just now? Why did it suddenly become so small? That's not right. Feel his spiritual pressure again. It's obviously on a different level than just now. What's going on? Is this the new power that will be given to us? At this time, Sal Apollo appeared behind Daocheng, and he said directly, Master Daocheng, the Arrancar in front of you seems to be extremely emotionally unstable. I wonder if he has transformed into an Arrancar. Don't worry, Sal Apollo. After you deal with a speck of dust, will you still worry about whether it is big or small? Daocheng said calmly. Ha, 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 this is really a powerful force. But, you asked someone to give me such a powerful power, but you are so weak. It's really shameful, Shinigami. Yammy just got the power, as if howling like an ignorant child. Don't worry, in return for the power you gave me, I will use this power to kill you. Tojoki Ayaya glanced at Yammy and said with a smile, if you want to try it, go ahead. But it has a premise, that is, you are stronger than me. Yammy heard Toshiro's methodical appearance and couldn't help but put her head up and laugh. What are you talking about? Shinigami, don't you understand how much my power has increased? Advertisement. With Yammy's arrogant and chattering speech, Daocheng always watched with a calm and indifferent attitude. Yammy laughed wildly and said, really? Then I will use the power given to me to kill you. After saying that, Yammy put his hand on the Zanpakuto. Dong, 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 several consecutive moving sounds appeared, and 4 Arrancars suddenly flashed around Yammy, surrounding Yammy in the center. Target Yammy's vital parts mercilessly. Yammy did not expect that when he was about to release the sword and show off his new power, the vital parts of his body would fall into the opponent's control. At this moment, Yammy's hand was just holding the hilt of the Zanpakuto. He only needed to expose the blade a little to be freed. Unexpectedly, he was subdued by 4 Arrancars who appeared at this time. Sal Apollo pointed the knife directly at Yammy's heart, licked his lips and said, you can run really fast. There is no precedent for a test subject to escape from my test bed before. Damn it, you bastards. Yammy shouted angrily, showing only extreme unwillingness. Daocheng slowly walked over and said, Harribel, Neutra, Zomali, Sal Apollo, your loyalty is worthy of commendation, but you can let him go now. Zomali said, but Master Daocheng. Tojoki Ayaya said, I know what you want to say, but his target is obviously me, so let me solve it first. It won't take long anyway. Yammy said disdainfully. Humph. What's the point of fighting alone now? If you have the guts, you first ask them to withdraw their swords, and then, you really. Before Yammy could finish his words, 4 people both Arrancars' swords were sheathed at the same time. Quote. Seeing the sword removed, Yammy couldn't help but feel happy. The Shinigami in front of her really chose to give up her advantage and fight with him alone. Ha, 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 Shinigami, you really have a heart. In this case, I have to admire your arrogance. Let me crush you. Yammy laughed loudly, and then chopped off the waist. Pull out the sword. Get angry, angry beast. When Yammy pulled out his Zanpakuto, a large amount of red smoke poured out from the sword. Then the red smoke turned into powerful bright red spiritual pressure, and Yammy's body slowly expanded in the red light. Harribel said in surprise, what kind of return blade is this? Will he continue to grow bigger? As the red light rose into the sky, Daxu below anticipated what was happening now. A hand suddenly stretched out from the red light, pushing away the smoke in front of his eyes. Yammy's whole body was bathed in red spiritual pressure after returning to the blade. Yammy's body became extremely large at this time, with 12 legs. Every time he took a step, he felt that the world was almost shattered. Yammy felt the terrifying power behind the sword, raised her eyebrows, and said, too small. Too small. In my eyes, you are as small, weak and vulnerable as ants. As he spoke, Yammy activated his spiritual pressure, and the crimson spiritual pressure directly wrapped his fist, and smashed it straight towards Tojo Ayaya. Chapter 38 When did you have the illusion that you can fight with me? Boom, Yammy punched the sword city hard. Along with the punch storm, a red spiritual pressure column rose up in front of Yammy, and sand and stones flew up in an instant. Don't let me get carried away. Shinigami. Yammy shouted angrily, punching the front wildly, trying to completely smash everything in front of him before he stopped. Hey, where are you hitting? Don't you even know the enemy's position? Daocheng smiled faintly behind Yammy. Yammy. When did the Shinigami in front of him escape his sight? The power and speed of his punch just now were all at his best, but he couldn't keep up with his speed. Yammy stretched out his hands and said angrily, stop joking. After saying that, powerful spiritual pressure erupted from Yammy's body again. Under the red spiritual pressure, Yammy's body became a little bigger. Tojoki Ayaya said in surprise, in the returning state, can you still complete further strengthening through your own power? Yammy's body expanded for the second time, and then he was filled with spiritual pressure and blasted towards the Sword City. Daocheng stood in the air and said, in that case, I will first test whether your strength matches your body. Toshiro clenched his fist and turned sideways to backhand, and connected with Yammy's fist, setting off a powerful spiritual pressure storm. Boom, boom, boom. Yammy collided with Touchy with several consecutive punches, and a powerful spiritual pressure storm broke out with each punch. Yammy's whole body was bathed in red light and he shouted, "Shinigami. I'm surprised that you can actually fight with me, but these few punches have shown me that you are trash. You can only do passive defense, but I just increase your strength a little more and your arm will be completely useless." Yammy punched again with confidence and murderous intent. Boom. After a violent explosion, Yammy's eyes widened. The scene where he expected Daochung's arm to be broken did not happen. On the contrary, his arm was now being held tightly by Daochung's hand and could not move. Break free half a point. Yammy's fist after returning to the blade was almost the same size as Touchy's entire body, but when Yammy's fist touched Daochung's palm, it was as if the fist was firmly attached to it and could not be pulled out at all. It's like the weird scene in a fairy tale where a giant's fist is stifled by a child's slap, but the only difference is, Daochung is not a child. As this, what is going on? Faced with Yammy's performance, Daochung smiled slightly and said, "You have the illusion that you can fight with me. When did you feel that your punch was better than mine?" Yammy's pupils became larger and she said, "Up there." Oh. The spiritual pressure on Touchy's palm made it impossible for Yammy to move at all. With Touchy's arm, Yammy's huge body was instantly thrown in front of him. Seizing the opportunity, Daochung took advantage of the opportunity to punch, and his fist was filled with extremely terrifying spiritual pressure, with a faint illusion of thunder and lightning and space collapse. "Why do you think I want you, Arrancars? That is to let you see the gap between the worlds," Daochung said immediately while Daochung was shaking his fist. Daochung punched forward, and the space where the fist passed was instantly distorted, locking Yammy's body tightly and making it impossible to escape. Boom boom, Tojo Ayaya Yoruichi punched Yammy hard, and Yammy's body was thrown upside down by the wind of the fist. Wow, Yammy sparkled with lightning all the way, and was knocked away by Tojo Ayaya's impact, and most of his huge body was broken into pieces. Advertisement. Half of Yammy's body was almost broken. He fell to the ground and stared at Toshiro's fist. Why? A mere Shinigami has such power. The ant-like Shinigami smashed half of my body. Me, I want more anger. Quote. Suddenly, the broken half of Yammy's body was repaired quickly and directly, and then Yammy's body began to squirm a lot. With the wriggling, Yammy's body grew a bit bigger, and then the mask on his face deformed, transforming into two bodies like upper and lower hell ghosts, with hair-covered lower limbs and tail, 4 sharp horns on the top of his head, and 1 on the back. Right angle. Yammy said. After drawing the sword, this is the first time I have become like this. This is the ultimate angry state after my evolution. In this form, my wrist strength, spiritual power and other attack power also continue to increase, and everything in the world will killed by me. Daochung watched Yammy change his appearance again, and began to have a tendency to attack blindly. The punch I just made was also reserved. I didn't want to kill him, but now I have completely lost my mind. Daochung shook his head silently and used the method he used to subdue other Daxu before. Tojo Ayaya slowly raised her hand, and then a spiritual pressure that shocked the depths of her soul suddenly erupted, and at the same time, the amount this time was stronger than any before. Boom! The spiritual pressure pillar descended on Yammy, and with the spiritual pressure pillar as the center, hurricanes were set off in all directions. The remnants of the spiritual pressure were like sharp blades that shattered the surrounding valleys and walls. At this time, the 4 Arrancars under Daochung gathered together again. Seeing Yammy being suppressed by Daochung again using spiritual pressure, he couldn't help but think of his past experience of facing Daochung for the first time. So, what exactly is the adult you call doing to Daxu? A woman with gentle words said. Again, you Daxu. Damn it. Neutra looked at the green-haired Daxu who suddenly came up to him, and couldn't help but started to curse. Zomali looked at the antelope-like female Daxu in front of him and said doubtfully, "Who are you?" "My name is Nailu, and I am a person who is curious about the new King of Hueco Mundo." Zomali looked at it carefully. It was a Daxu at the level of Bastard, and he should also be able to become the power of Master Daochung. And seeing that Harribel seems to have brought a big void, and she has lived up to the trust of the Sword City, will the Espada gather together like this? Sal Apollo still had the madness of a scientist, and said, "I just don't know if this big virtual creature in front of me will become Master Daochung's new power, or will it be my experimental subject?" Yammy's rage has obviously decreased, and now his spiritual pressure is completely suppressed in the Sword City. It's so huge that you can't even see the end of it. It's so dignified that you can't even breathe. It has the power to turn spiritual pressure into substance. Yammy only felt the power of the sky falling and the universe collapsing. Yammy's anger slowly diminished. So that's it, is this his power? Does it seem like my anger is just an ant in front of him? Yammy slowly fell down, retaining only the most basic vitality. The body as huge as a giant mountain was also shrinking, and in the blink of an eye it became the same size as before the sword. Seeing Yammy's complete defeat, Daochung walked up slowly and said calmly as if he had done an insignificant thing, "Are you still alive? Daxu, I will ask you 2 questions now. Then, you must give I make a choice." Chapter 39 Fear overrides anger. Espada is assembled. Daochung walked up to Yammy, although his expression was the same as before, but the words that came out of his mouth were chilling to the bone. "Then you have to make a choice for me. If Yammy refuses to surrender, Daocheng will kill him completely at this moment. After all, it doesn't matter if the original Espada is not together, after all, the Espada position is alive. For things that are beyond his control, Toshiro kills them without any hesitation. Just like the previous Amagai Suisuke, Toshiro will kill them immediately as soon as he judges that keeping him alive may lead to unexpected situations. What Daocheng looks at in a person is not whether the person is strong or not, nor the quality of his character, but whether he can be 100% controlled by himself. In fact, when Daxu was Arranccar for Daxu, unlike Aizen, backup measures had already been buried in Daxu's body, allowing Daxu to control everything anytime and anywhere through the connection established between Daxu and him. But this is all before the eyes of the Spirit King. Now, with the eyes of the Spirit King, Toshiro Ayaya can see everything in the three realms clearly anytime and anywhere. Every time Yammy resisted, biting cold spiritual pressure would come from above, as if it was going to crush him. For a moment, Yammy's heart couldn't beat, as if Daocheng was holding his heart at any time, and now life and death were completely controlled by Daocheng. A suffocating and depressing atmosphere invaded his mind, and the fear of death arose spontaneously, sweeping away the previous arrogance and anger. The suppression of death over the power of anger. Instead of anger, there was boundless fear lingering in Yammy's heart. What kind of power is this? So that's why he feels confident and bold enough to give me the power to break the mask. In the past, Yammy had absolute confidence in his own strength, so he looked down on those weaker than him. To him, no matter who the opponent is, whether Shinigami is weak or not, as long as he is weak, he is no different from trash. If the other party is considered weak by him, he will not show mercy even if he is a companion. Unexpectedly, the person who was considered weak now has become himself. Due to the absolute suppression, Yammy instinctively had the fear of Tojo Ayaya that was as great as heaven and earth. Now, do you understand what real power is? Yammy lay on the ground and said feebly, I understand. I understand. Daocheng smiled slightly, narrowed his eyes and said, then the two choices given to you, are you to choose to surrender to me, or to lie down like an ant and be wiped out by me? After Daocheng finished speaking, a sense of fear once again occupied Yammy's heart. Do you want to die? Do you want to die? Do you want to die? Yammy knew that this time was the closest to death since she was born in Hueco Mundo, but she didn't have the confidence to accept the death arrangement yet, she didn't want to die yet. Yammy knelt down on the ground and said, I choose to surrender, Master Daocheng, and I, Yammy Realgo, choose to be loyal to you. ... Although Zai Palace was hit by Yammy just now, under the throne, it was still not affected much. Advertisement. Daocheng sat under the throne, and Daxu, who had already subdued him, stood in 2 rows. They are Balagang, Harribel, Urokra, Neutra, Zomali, Yammy, Thrall Apollo. Daocheng raised the corner of his mouth and said, Harribel, Neutra, Zomali. 3 Arrancars stood up and responded, Lord Daocheng, please give me your instructions. X3. I remember that I assigned you a task in Zai Palace a few days ago, to find the powerful Daxu. I wonder if you have completed it and brought him to Zai Palace. Harribel said, Lord Sword City, I have brought you a great void with powerful fighting ability, Grimmjow Jakajik. Although his current strength is not an advantage, there is no doubt that he also has the potential to become your strength. Daocheng looked at the pure white leopard-shaped Daxu with blue eyes in the audience, and thought, is this Grimmjow? Although he is currently relatively weak, there is no doubt that he has the ability to become Vasto Virtue level has great potential. Daocheng nodded slightly and said, Harribel, you did a good job. He does have this power. He can call Sal Apollo later to let him have a glimpse of the new realm in advance. Daocheng turned to look at Zomari and said, what about you? Zomari, as the messenger of love, what kind of surprises will you bring to me? Zomali stepped forward and knelt down and said, Master Daocheng, when I was searching for strong men for you, I heard the story of a lonely Daxu in the deepest part of Hueco Mundo. I followed this clue and led you to Here Comes Coyote Stark, the lone wolf of Hueco Mundo. Toshiro looked at the decadent uncle at the end and a blonde loli beside him. Toshiro said, it is indeed an independent Arrancar. Since Arturo Platido, Hueco Mundo is the only independent Arrancar. Totally Arrancar. Daocheng crossed his hands and asked, Stark, do you know what Arrancar represents? It is the whole new world that belongs to Shu. I heard that you yearn for being weak because of your companions. Then follow me, you will not have this worry, congratulations on becoming a member of my Espada. Stark still maintained his uncle's voice and said, I have met Master Daocheng. Neutra, what about you? Daocheng finally looked at Neutra. It seemed that this guy was still a little awkward. Neutra stammered. This. Daocheng smiled and said, Neutra, I know exactly what you did in Hueco Mundo, don't you want to tell me? The reality of what happened in Hueco Mundo is all reflected in my eyes, and I know everything. Your power is actually even if you lose slightly, you haven't broken the mask yet. Zomali bowed forward to replace Neutra and said, Lord Sword City, the name of the Daxu that Neutra found is Nilul Duodeshovank. She is an antelope-shaped female Vastad Daxu. Virtual. Daocheng slowly walked down the stairs and walked to the Daxu whom Zomali mentioned. Nelul Duodeshovank, what wish do you have? Or what obsession do you have? Nilu replied, I have no wishes. The only idea I have is that when Shu regains consciousness, he should regain his rationality and not engage in meaningless fights. But when I have to fight, I will do it without any reason. Picking up the knife in your hand to protect important people is like the behavior of a beast. This is the reason why I came to Hueco Mundo. I will bring new hope to the confused souls of Hueco Mundo, let them get rid of the devouring instinct, and then pick up the sword to fight for themselves. Daocheng nodded and said. Toshiro stretched out his hand towards Nailu and said, in that case, are you willing to fight for me? In this way, you will also see the new Hueco Mundo, Nailu'll duodeshivank. Hearing this, Nailu lowered her head to express her loyalty and said, yes, I will protect everything you bring to Hueco Mundo, and I will fight for you without hesitation, Lord Tojo. Daocheng's back. That's good, a brand new world is right in front of us. Sar Apollo, can be Arrancarized. In the future, I believe we will usher in a true awakening for the three realms. Chapter 40 The Establishment of Espada. The shadow behind Soul Society. After the battle, everything in Zai Palace returned to peace. Daocheng is filled with the aura of a king. He is sitting on the high platform on the top floor. Below him, Arrancars stands in 2 rows. At the bottom is the large group of people who came to Zai Palace following the call. At this time, Sal Apollo had helped all Nero and the others to complete the Arrancar, and since then all the Espadas in the Blade City have been officially gathered. Daocheng stood up from the throne and said, hello everyone, welcome to my Zai Palace. We are number 1 in Hueco Mundo. Enemies who face us will be afraid, and we will become their nightmare. There is no need to worry or be impatient. As long as you follow me, I will have no rivals ahead. Because the Daxu on the field have all realized the strength of Daocheng before, in this virtual circle where the strong make a living, they have automatically regarded Daocheng as the king. Voices such as, long live Lord Daocheng, and, my king, live forever, were heard one after another below. Daocheng looked at the virtual group below, and after they calmed down, he said, in terms of killing ability, I selected the 10 strongest Arrancars to be selected into my Espada Legion. The first Espada, Coyote Stark. Second Espada, Balagang Ruzenbang. Third Espada, Sal Apollo Grants. Fourth Espada, Tia Harribel. The fifth Espada, Niliel Duodeshovank. Sixth Espada, Ulquiorra Cipher. The seventh Espada, Neutra Gilga. Eighth Espada, Grimmjow Jakarjak. The ninth Espada, Zomali Lulu. Then comes the 10th Espada, the 0th Espada, Yammy Realgo. They will become my swords and bring about the true awakening of the three realms. Just when Toshiro stood up to announce Espada's list, he also gave an impromptu speech. Although there was a suspicion of plagiarizing Aizen, Aizen is still busy collecting Shinigami souls in Soul Society for virtualization experiments. At the same time, not forgetting to try to trick his own captain. The voice of the system sounded again in Daocheng's mind. Congratulations to host for unlocking the achievement, King of Hueco Mundo, and obtaining a special prop, the Seal of Seal. Close black lens bracket. Note. This prop conforms to the operating rules of the Shinigami world. It allows the person holding this seal to completely block Shinigami's Bankai and can be copied. Close black lens bracket. Can it be copied? That would be much more useful. Daocheng thought in his mind. When Yhwach led the Invisible Empire to attack Soul Society, why was it that the Shinigami side was completely defeated in the first battle, and no captain was their opponent? Advertisement. Is it true that the entire Star Cross Legion has super captain strength? No, except for the guards and a few difficult holy scripts, the overall hard power of the Quincy is not much stronger than that of the Shinigami. The key is their star formation, the ability to plunder Shinigami Bankai. Without Bankai, the enemy cannot be eliminated, and if Bankai is used, it will be captured by the enemy. In addition, the Shinigami intelligence collected by hiding in the shadows for thousands of years makes it impossible to destroy the Shinigami. It can be said that Keishi had the upper hand in the first battle. At present, Toshiro himself now has something that can block Bankai, not to mention that he has been in Soul Society before and can be said to have a good understanding of Shinigami's information. Daocheng raised his hand and signaled for Sal Apollo to come over. Daocheng said, can you analyze this thing? After saying that, Daocheng took out a black plate from his arms and handed it to Sal Apollo. Sal Apollo took a look and said, Lord Daocheng, I will try my best. Daocheng said solemnly, this thing is very important. I need you to completely analyze the composition of his spirit sun and be able to copy it. Master Daocheng, what is this? Sal Apollo couldn't help but be a little curious when he saw Daocheng Ayaya being so solemn. After you analyze it, you will naturally deduce its function, but there is no rush to say it now. Once the secret is exported, it will only become a fact that can be seen everywhere. Daocheng said, finally, I will just a reminder, this thing is very important, and it will probably be a great breakthrough for your research. Research on me, I understand. Thank you Lord Daocheng for once again giving me a divine object for research. Sal Apollo bowed. Daocheng narrowed his eyes and looked at the Espada in front of him and the countless Daxu groups below. The most important thing now is to conserve strength and wait for the final fatal blow to Soul Society. Yes, just wait. Yin, want. Don't you think it has become difficult to capture Daxu and study it over the past 100 years? In a hidden laboratory, a man wearing a captain's white long-sleeved haori and glasses, who looked very gentle and elegant, said. The other is a dark-skinned man, also wearing captain's feathers, with his hair styled into short dreadlocks. After hearing the question and answer, he said respectfully. Aizen-sama, although the effect of the Daxu recently created by borrowing the soul of Shinigami is very obvious, there is still a lack of real comparison templates. That's right, the one who wears glasses, wears Captain Haori, has a gentle demeanor and eyes as gentle as the sun, is Aizen Sosuke, the big boss of the Arrancars chapter in the original work. Aizen observed the modified Daxu who was soaked in the nutrient tank in front of him, and said, yes, Hueco Mundo's movements have indeed become different in the past 100 years. The powerful Daxu seems to have disappeared all of a sudden. Standing beside him was a man with short light purple hair and a habit of squinting his eyes. Shinigami said in a half-joking tone, ah, Captain Aizen, does this mean we have to go to Hueco Mundo? Aizen lowered his head, his glasses reflecting in the light, and said in a deep voice, Silver, what do you think? Ichimaru Jin still had the same tone and said, Captain Aizen, what are you going to do? Aizen chuckled and said, yeah, it's time to go to Hueco Mundo. I want to know what happened in Hueco Mundo in the past 100 years. Experimenting in Hueco Mundo is safer than Soul Society. In addition, it's the best time to go to Hueco Mundo. The most important thing is the whereabouts of Urahara Kazuki and Hiroko Shinji. I believe the truth will come to light. Jin, Konami, get ready, we are about to go to Hueco Mundo. Chapter 41 Hueco Mundo's Huge Changes. Aizen's shock. Brush, swipe, swipe, along with 3 footsteps, 3 Shinigami suddenly appeared in Hueco Mundo. They were all uniformly dressed in Death Tyrant uniforms, with Captain Yori draped over them. These 3 people are the current captain of the 5th Division of the Gotei 13, Aizen Sosuke, the captain of the 3rd Division, Ichimaru Jin, and the captain of the 9th Division, Tosen Konami. As soon as Ichimaru Jin stepped into the land of Hueco Mundo, he felt the sand slap on his face and said, I have heard a lot about Hueco Mundo before, but the opportunity to go so deep like today is really rare. Tosen must remain serious at all times and scolded, be careful, Ichimaru. This is not Soul Society, this is the world of hollows. Aizen said, no need to be nervous, yes. Don't worry, everything is under control. According to Hueco Mundo's original combat power, with the 2 captains and the existence of Aizen, it is completely capable of walking sideways in Hueco Mundo. The 3 of them sensed Hueco Mundo's surroundings, and Tosen Konami suddenly said, Lord Aizen. Aizen waved his hand to stop Tosen Konami from speaking. I know everything you want to say. It's interesting that Hueco Mundo has become like this now. Aizen turned to look in one direction and said, most of all the powerful Daxu are gathered there. No wonder we can't find powerful individuals when we look for experimental materials. It turns out they are all concentrated in one place. Quote. Let's go, Yin. Let's uncover the secrets that Hueco Mundo has hidden for nearly 100 years. On the throne, Daocheng, dressed in white, suddenly seemed to sense something and suddenly opened his eyes. Daocheng's eyes suddenly turned pure black, and a strange diamond pattern appeared in the center of his eyes. Nearly 100 years have passed since Toshiro seized the position of King of Hueco Mundo. He transformed all the Daxu who had self-awareness and breakthrough potential into Arrancars. And not only that, when Arrancars was transforming Daxu at the bottom, they were worried that they would leak information because of their weak words. Daocheng also mixed some things into it, which can effectively control him anytime and anywhere. Based on Mirai Aizen's aesthetic, Toshiro slightly changed the colors and designed a set of white and red Kyonomiya costumes. In the past 100 years, Daocheng has also made many innovations in Zai Palace, and the internal environment of Zai Palace has completely changed. Sword City designed the Zai Palace into a larger and more complicated labyrinth-like building. Each of Espada has its own palace, and Arrancars outside Espada also has its own residence according to different levels. Based on the actual sun, Daocheng imitated the artificial sun in proportion in Zai Palace, and used means to improve the phenomenon of yellow sand everywhere in Zai Palace. At this time, lawns, running water, and sunlight have been created in Zai Palace. It is almost impossible to find any difference from the environment in the Soul Society. During this process, Sal Apollo also successfully analyzed the spirit composition of the sealing seal, and engraved it on the black seal and distributed it to Espada, so that every member of Espada could seal it alone. Shinigami Bankai's abilities. However, Daocheng still does not forget to check in every year according to the system, and its strength is also increasing day by day. In terms of pure panels, it can be said that no one in the entire 3 realms is the opponent of Sword City at this moment. At this time, Tojoki Ayaya rarely opened the eyes of the Soul King, because just now in Tojoki, she felt the opening of the world traveling gate. The eye of the Soul King opened, and everything in Hueco Mundo instantly appeared in front of Tojoki. Toshiro observed the 3 intruders in front of him, all of whom were wearing Captain Haori and equipped with Zanpakuto at their waists. Advertisement. Daocheng watched the movements of the 3 people and secretly speculated. Captain, since the last time I killed Amagai Suihu, Soul Society has not made any move towards me for 100 years. After such a long time, the 46th chamber, including Tsunayashiro, may have forgotten about me. And the way they entered Hueco Mundo was so hidden that if my perception hadn't covered the entire Hueco Mundo, it would have been impossible to detect them. Toshiro then saw Haori, the bespectacled man who looked like the leader. His Haori was fluttering behind his back, with the word, Wu, printed on it in a big way. Aizen and the others. After Toshiro saw the sign, he instantly determined the identities of the 3 people. Daocheng smiled lightly and said to the 2 maids next to him, go and inform all Espada that important guests have arrived, and ask them to come and sit in front of the throne for a while. And tell them, if you see that man with glasses, please when you pull out the knife, you feel like you close your eyes, do you understand? Yes, heard that. Watching the maids leave and go to various palaces in Espada to start reporting, Toshiro kept a close eye on Aizen and the others' movements, as if a hidden eye was always watching them. ... Halfway through the march, Aizen suddenly felt from his sixth sense that he was being watched. Is this my hallucination? Why do I feel like a pair of eyes are watching my every move all the time? But if I take a closer look, there is no one within 100 miles. Ichimaru Jin looked at Aizen's strange look and asked, Captain Aizen, what's wrong? Aizen said, there is nothing strange, just a little strange. This is probably my illusion. Jin, Konami, now we need to know the changes inside before entering Zai Palace. Why are there so many? The Daxahui is entrenched there, even if it is the territory of the King of Hueco Mundo, this is really strange. Quote. Tosen asked. So what does Aizen-sama mean? Let's first capture a lone and conscious Daxu and ask. After all, we need to know the information inside in advance. Aizen adjusted his glasses and said without any nervousness. Yes. Tosen Konami received Aizen's order and disappeared in an instant to find Daxu who was alone. 10 minutes later, an Arrancar was thrown in front of Aizen. Dongxian Yao said. It was really easy to find. All the conscious Daxu were in Zai Palace. In the end, after searching for a long time, I could only find this one. Aizen was shocked when he saw Arrancar for the first time. Why was this false mask shattered? But feeling his spiritual pressure, it was far from the level of being able to control Arrancar. Regarding Shinigami virtualization and virtual Shinigami transformation, Aizen has been doing experimental research for hundreds of years in this aspect. He deeply understands that it is not easy to break through this realm. Once this point is reached, it will bring about a cliff-like improvement in the soul. Countless thoughts flashed through Aizen's mind in an instant. There is also something like Hōgyoku in Hueco Mundo that can completely destroy the soul barrier. Your mask is broken, what happened? Although Aizen was surprised in his heart, his face remained calm and he observed the performance of Arrancar in front of him. The Arrancar on the other end felt the endless pressure from the three people in front of him, especially the man with glasses. Although he asked with a smile, the chill that was revealed all the time had already penetrated deep into the soul of this Arrancar. The nameless Arrancar was hindered by the pressure from the three people in front of him, but when he thought of Knife City, the nameless Arrancar still replied tremblingly, the King of Hueco Mundo, forbid us to send the news. Spread the word, this. I can't tell you this. Aizen remained elegant and calm. Can't you answer? Then I will ask you something in another way. Chapter 42 Tojo's Methods. The foreplay for the upcoming meeting with Aizen. Can't you answer? Then I'll ask you something in another way. After Aizen said this, a huge pressure suddenly appeared on Arrancar. In an instant, Arrancar suddenly felt a huge force pressing directly on his body, and the surrounding air was filled with endless gravity. Boom. This Arrancar was immediately suppressed by Aizen's spiritual pressure and fell to the ground, unable to get up. Aizen still had an elegant smile and said, in this case, you should be able to understand. Tell me about your King of Hueco Mundo. The nameless Arrancar faced this imminent threat of death. Arrancar said tremblingly, Sir, I really don't know the details. It's just that this is the power given to us by the new King of Hueco Mundo. The new King of Hueco Mundo. He has the power to make the hollows Arrancar, gather a large number of big hollows in the Hollow Knight Palace, and hide the news for nearly 100 years. Aizen suddenly felt that something was out of his control, which made him feel unhappy. This was the first time that someone had taken the lead. Raise your head. Aizen looked at the prostrate Arrancar in front of him and comforted him. Don't be afraid, I'm just asking you a few questions. Aizen then asked. What's going on with the new King of Hueco Mundo? How did he let you have the power of Arrancar? As long as you tell me, you can leave. The nameless Arrancar said. I'm not very clear. Nearly 100 years ago, we heard that the King of Hueco Mundo suddenly changed people, and he also sent Daxu to inform us, saying that he would give us new power. Quote. Aizen listened carefully to the explanation of the nameless Arrancar and said, Then what? How did he let you complete your evolution? The nameless Arrancar continued. Then, behind the Zai Palace, his men took out a. Wow. Nameless Arrancar had just finished speaking when his body suddenly swelled up, and nameless Arrancar let out a shrill scream. At this time, Ichimaru Jin and Tosen Konami suddenly saw Arrancar's sudden change in front of them, and they both stood up directly and put their hands on the Zanpakuto at their waists. Captain Aizen, are you okay? It's nothing. Aizen looked at the Arrancar's body in front of him becoming more and more swollen, and said, is it surveillance? Or is it an automatic restriction method? I see, I understand why the corpse soul has been here for nearly 100 years. There is no reason for Hueco Mundo to move. After the nameless Arrancar screamed, his body began to expand gradually. His body could not withstand the power of the expansion. Boom. The Arrancar was blown up directly in front of Aizen, fragmented. Aizen still smiled calmly. It seems that this new King of Hueco Mundo is a very capable guy, with the ability to remotely control his Arrancar. As far as his actions are concerned, there is no doubt that he is also very ambitious. That guy, but why hasn't he taken any action in the past 100 years? What is he planning? Aizen was also shocked by the King of Hueco Mundo at this moment, and he also felt a little curious in his heart. Yin, Konami, head to Zai Palace. It seems that we have to visit the King of Hueco Mundo now. ... Toshiro sat leisurely on the throne of Zai Palace, holding his chin with his right hand, watching every move of Aizen and the others through the eyes of the Soul King. Aizen's sixth sense was not wrong. From the beginning, they were monitored by Daocheng. Just now, when the Arrancars was about to tell the key information about Hōgyoku, Toshiro decisively chose to kill it remotely. Toshiro looked at all the Espada present at the bottom of the stairs, sensing Aizen's approach, a smile appeared on his lips. Advertisement. He is about to meet one of the most charismatic villains in the entire history of Japanese comics. The three of Aizen walked very quickly and arrived outside Zai Palace in a short time. Aizen looked at the huge white building and the majestic stone gate in front of him. Ichimaru smiled and said, Aizen-sama, if you just walk in like this, it's somewhat rude. Tosen Konami reprimanded. Ichimaru, watch your tone. Aizen didn't have any thoughts, and said, I came here specifically to see the King of Hueco Mundo, so hurry up and see him. This happens to be a form of etiquette, so you don't need to think too much. Aizen and the other three people couldn't help but immediately reported that they were shuttled back and forth in Zai Palace directly through Shunpo. Zai Palace was a large maze complex. With the speed at which Aizen and three people shuttled back and forth, ordinary Arrancar could not see through it at all. When they came to a hidden corner and looked at the huge number of Arrancars, even Ichimaru Jin, who had always loved teasing, was shocked. Hey, are you kidding? There are so many Arrancars appearing like this. What on earth is this King of Hueco Mundo going to do? Tosen Konami said. Lord Aizen, it seems that this King of Hueco Mundo has a big plan. I suggest you wait until you are fully prepared before coming again. Aizen smiled slightly and said, Yao, you are not usually a scared person, so you can't accept seeing such a battle. As long as Kyoka Suigetsu is in my hand for a day, I will always be fully prepared. Even if there are hundreds of these Arrancars in front of Kyoka Suigetsu, nothing can harm Aizen in the slightest. Even if Kyoka Suigetsu is removed, Aizen can defeat these low-level Arrancars in an instant with sheer strength. The only thing that shocked Aizen was how big Hueco Mundo's movements were, and how much ambition he showed could be seen by so many people. There will be no peace in the three realms soon. Dongxian lowered his head and punished himself. Yes, I didn't think it through. Look, the doors are open. Aizen looked at the door directly leading to the King of Hueco Mundo, and it changed from the original closed state to an open state. Aizen said, everyone is actually treating us, why do we just retreat like this? Ichimaru Jin said with an exaggerated tone, alas, have you been discovered now? We are all suppressing our spiritual pressure to avoid unnecessary fights. Why are the perceptions of these people in Hueco Mundo so bad? Keen. Aizen recalled the process after arriving in Hueco Mundo, and pondered, if my feeling is not wrong, we have been sensed from the beginning. Tosen Konami quickly said, then, Lord Aizen. No need to say more, yes. Aizen tidied up his death boss outfit and said, interesting Omoshiroi, it has already been noticed. Is it an instrument, or a special ability, or a method that I don't understand? Aizen smiled slightly. The new King of Hueco Mundo, I am becoming more and more interested in you. What kind of person are you? Chapter 43 Finally meeting Aizen. Tojo's warning. On the way to the throne, Aizen, Ichimaru Jin, and Tosen Konami moved forward slowly and in an orderly manner. The footsteps of three people echoed in the corridor. In the quiet palace corridor, the footsteps of three people came from time to time, which seemed unusually strange. Just as they walked a certain distance, a white light suddenly appeared in front of them. The lights in his eyes instantly illuminated what was in front of him like daylight, and Aizen and the others had arrived in a dazzling hall. Aizen and the other three looked up along the light. The person sitting on the throne was wearing red and white clothes and had black hair. There were 2 rows of Arrancars standing in front of the throne, also wearing a uniform set of red and white clothes, and they all carried Zanpakuto. Standing neatly on both sides, there are 5 in a row. These Espadas had all heard the announcement from Tojo just now, and they regarded the 3 Shinigami who appeared in front of them as enemies. They kept their hands on their Zanpakutos and remained vigilant at all times. Although neither side drew their swords to fight, the hall was filled with a solemn atmosphere at this moment. Seeing the scene in front of him, Tosen Konami and Ichimaru Jin were facing so many Arrancars at the same time, and they did not dare to be confused. They reflexively grasped the hilt of the Zanpakuto. If there is any emergency, the 2 of them will immediately draw their swords and fight. Aizen still remained calm and said, Jin, Konami, there is no need to be nervous, the purpose of our coming here is not to fight. Aizen looked at Tojo Ayaya and said, are you the newly appointed King of Hueco Mundo 100 years ago? I am very satisfied that you attach so much importance to our arrival. Especially when Aizen and the other 3 saw that the person sitting on the throne was not Kion, but a Shinigami just like them, they were even more surprised than before. I really didn't expect that the legendary King of Hueco Mundo was actually a Shinigami. Although Aizen was surprised, his surprised look flashed past, and then he looked calm again. The corner of Toshiro Ayaya's mouth curled up. He did not expect that the captain he saw for the first time since being exiled to Hueco Mundo was Aizen. Daocheng thought silently in his heart. System, open personal panel. Open black lens bracket host. Tojo Ayaya close black lens bracket. Zanpakuto. None. Reiatsu. The ultimate peak. Open black lens bracket swordsmanship. The ultimate pinnacle close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket white hits. The ultimate peak close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket shunpo. The ultimate peak close black lens bracket. Toshiro looked at his own panel and smiled. Now his hexagons were completely filled up, and he was not inferior to the bosses in the later stages, not to mention the Aizen in front of him who had not yet merged with Hōgyoku. Aizen's only Kyoka Suigetsu who may interfere with him can also use the Eye of the Soul King to compete. It can be said that the Shinigami Aizen in front of him poses no threat to Tojo Ayaya at this moment, and he can easily counterattack control him. Toshiro smiled and said, I'm really surprised. The guests in front of me are actually the 3 captains of the Gotei 13. You don't serve in Soul Society, so why are you here in Hueco Mundo? Are you here specifically for sightseeing? Aizen showed a smile on his face, shook his head and began to introduce himself. My name is Aizen Sosuke. I am the captain of the 5th division of Soul Society today. The other 2 are Ichimaru Jin, the captain of the 3rd division and the 9th division. Captain Tosen Konami. Then 3 captains, why do you come to my palace? This is not Soul Society. Advertisement. Toshiro did not shy away from the invisible pressure emanating from Aizen, and said, by the way, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Toshiro, Ayaya Toshiro, the deputy captain of the 11th division 300 years ago. The captain 300 years ago. Aizen pondered. 300 years ago, he was not the captain or even a Shinigami. Aizen recalled when he was young 300 years ago. He only remembered rumors that for a few days, the vice captain of the 11th division had done a great evil and was sentenced to death by room 46. But the strange thing is that suddenly the top management issued an order to prohibit everyone in Soul Society from talking about this matter. After being banned by Soul Society and washed away for 300 years, the name of the deputy captain of Squad 11 became. It was little known and gradually turned into a rumor. Unexpectedly, this rumored Shinigami is actually in Hueco Mundo at this moment, and has become the king of Hueco Mundo. I see, you are the deputy captain of Daocheng. Aizen's mind was spinning very quickly, although there were some rumors about you before, I never thought I would see you in person now. Shinigami, who was sentenced by Chamber 46, would definitely have the same views on Soul Society as him. Moreover, Tojo has disappeared for 300 years and yet he has become the king of Hueco Mundo. To be able to defeat so many powerful Arrancars just by being a Shinigami shows the strength of Tojo. Aizen regarded Toshiro as a fighting force that he could win over at first sight. Aizen whispered some information about the Sword City to Ichimaru Jin and Tosen. Ichimaru Jin and Tosen Konami were shocked on the spot, the genius of the Soul Society, the former vice captain who betrayed the Shinigami side, and Kantojo was not wearing a Zanpakuto at all. A deputy captain, Shinigami, can continue to survive in the harsh Hueco Mundo despite losing his Zanpakuto. After 100 years, he becomes the king of Hueco Mundo and subdues so many subordinates at the same time. The difficulty of this is even difficult for Ichimaru Jin and Tosen Konami. Imagine. Toshiro sat on the throne and looked at Aizen in front of him, and said, I have finished introducing myself, let me ask again. Captain Aizen, you 3 came to Hueco Mundo not specifically for sightseeing, right? Tojo deliberately teased. You came to Hueco Mundo without applying for approval from Soul Society's senior management, and you also met with me, the leader of the Arrancars Legion. Do you also want to betray Soul Society? Ha, 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 the deputy captain of Daocheng was joking. Aizen shook his head, and changed his gentle tone before, and said seriously, how can destroying a rotten tombstone involve betrayal? Tojo knew that Aizen came to Hueco Mundo to rule Hueco Mundo so that he could conduct Arrancarization experiments, and at the same time, he used the Espadas of Arrancar to delay the 13th team for a while. But now Hueco Mundo is already in the possession of Ayaya Tojo. As early as nearly 100 years ago, after Tojo took over Espada, Hueco Mundo quietly accumulated strength under the governance of Tojo. Now the position of king of Hueco Mundo will not be given up by Tojo Castle to anyone. And Toshiro Ayaya has absolute confidence that he will not lose to anyone. Aizen suddenly said at this moment, Vice Captain Daocheng, are you satisfied with your current condition? The current numerical values of Sword City are much stronger than those of Aizen who is not fused with Hōgyoku at this moment. Facing Aizen's inquiry, he just smiled and watched what Aizen did. Have you really seen the world clearly? Are you curious about the laws of how this world works? Aizen spoke philosophically while slowly moving his hand to the Kyoka Suigetsu on his waist. Daocheng is familiar with Aizen's information and has been wary of Aizen's every move from the beginning. Just when Aizen was about to pull out the scabbard, Tojo disappeared on the throne in an instant, and appeared in front of Aizen the next second. What kind of speed? Aizen had no reaction at all to Toshiro's teleportation, and could not react at all. Tojo appeared directly in front of Aizen. Tojo Ayaya's hand was like an iron hoop, tightly grabbing Aizen's wrist, preventing him from moving at all. Toshiro warned coldly. Captain Aizen, when visiting the king of Hueco Mundo, remember not to draw your sword. Chapter 44 Fiery Lightning Howl from Zero Distance. Tojo vs. Aizen. Toshiro's hand tightly grasped Aizen's wrist. Aizen's wrist that had just been held on Kyoka Suigetsu could not move at all, let alone pull out Kyoka Suigetsu. Lord Daocheng, Espada Arrancar, who was on the side, clanged, when he saw that Tojo had already taken action. All the Zanpakuto were unsheathed, and they surrounded several Zanpakuto with their tips pointing at the vital parts of Ichimaru Jin and Tosen Konami. Allah, there is nothing you can do about being pointed at so many knives at the same time, don't you think? Aizen-sama. Ichimaru Jin raised his hands with a, spare me, expression. Said. Dongxian Yao's frowned and said, damn it. He himself didn't believe that he was actually subdued by such a group of Arrancars in an instant. Captain Aizen, when visiting the King of Hueco Mundo, remember not to draw your sword. Tushiro's cold warning reached Aizen's ears. Although Aizen's wrist was tightly grasped by Tojo, his expression remained unchanged and he said, Deputy Captain Tojo, you are joking. As the King of Hueco Mundo, you will never lose sight of my Zanpakuto. Are you afraid? It seems that your aura of king is really lacking. Quote. Tojo sneered and said, Captain Aizen, you are just kidding. Although I, as the ruler of Hueco Mundo, will not be afraid of Shinigami's Zanpakuto, I inevitably need to be careful with Captain Aizen. Although Aizen was still smiling on his face, he was already feeling something bad in his heart. This was the first time he had tasted this feeling of always being one step behind. Even before he faced Urahara Kazuki, the only one with a higher IQ than himself, he relied on his Zanpakuto's advantages and intelligence knowledge to achieve a tit-for-tat confrontation. But Tojoki had already left Soul Society 300 years ago, and Aizen was not even a Shinigami 300 years ago. How did Tojo Ayaya know about herself? There is also the weird speed of Tojoki Ayaya's hand that makes her unable to react, and the technique that allows Hollow to destroy the mask and complete the Shinigami transformation. At this time, Aizen no longer had any intention of subduing the Sword City, and had completely considered the other party to be at the same level as himself, or even at a higher level. The moment Aizen was caught by Daocheng, he had already thought about countless possibilities in his mind. Aizen decided to maintain an attitude of delaying peace, and said, Deputy Captain Sword City, I know you hate Soul Society, but it has been 300 years. After the three of us return to Soul Society, the three of us will if you put pressure on the top leaders of Soul Society together as a captain, they will definitely relent. By then, your reputation will be restored, and you will definitely be able to become the captain with your current combat power. Is there any more favorable conditions than this to leave the harsh Hueco Mundo and return to my original place? Aizen persuaded. Tojo suddenly laughed and said, Captain Aizen, do you think I am a 3-year-old child? I would give up everything here in Hueco Mundo to serve as a guard for that rotten cemetery. This is my original place, Aizen team leader. Quote. It seems that there is no way to solve it peacefully. Aizen sighed leisurely, and suddenly his tone changed. Fiery lightning howl. When Aizen was caught by Tojo, he was already thinking about how to get out of Tojo's wrist. First, he used seemingly impossible words to talk to Tushiro, but in fact, he was secretly operating his own spiritual pressure. Then in the middle of speaking, he suddenly launched an attack on Daocheng. Advertisement. The thunder cannon Aizen used was the right hand held by Tojo, because his wrist was firmly held by Tojo. When the instant thunder cannon is fired, Aizen's thunder cannon does not appear from the palm of the hand like those used by ordinary Shinigami, but is fired from the back of the hand. Boom! A huge golden shock wave 100 meters high appeared in the hall, and the target of Aizen's fiery lightning howl was directly on Tushiro's face. And at a negative distance, this move even Aizen himself is within the attack range of fiery lightning howl. Touchy frowned slightly, stretched out his free hand, raised his spiritual pressure and moved it in front of his face. Boom, pong, Daocheng blocked fiery lightning howl's attack, but the smoke caused by the explosion still filled the throne hall. Zomari was pointing a knife at Ichimaru Jin's back. When he saw Tushiro receiving the next Kidō from close range, he shouted anxiously, Tushiro-sama. Aizen saw the right moment, and at the moment when Tojo's power weakened slightly, he twisted his wrist out. Aizen followed the two shunpo, keeping a distance between himself and Tojo. Ichimaru Jin suddenly caught the abnormality of Zomali behind him and said with a half smile, the gentleman behind you. You have exposed a flaw. Zomali was shocked. What did you say? Shinigami. Harribel yelled. Don't be distracted by looking around, you idiot. Ichimaru Jin took advantage of Zomali's distraction to retreat from Shunpo, and at the same time, he drew his Zanpakuto with his backhand. Shoot him, Divine Spear. After Ichimaru Jin recited the Shikai language, the Zanpakuto in his hand directly lengthened like a big sniper, and then Ichimaru Jin handed the Zanpakuto from his left hand to his right hand, and as the hand holding the sword changed, his spirit the attack direction of the gun changed to several Arrancars surrounding Dongxian Fortress. While Arrancars was resisting a sudden attack by a sharp gun, one of Tosen Kanami's Shunpo escaped from the encirclement of Arrancars' Zanpakuto. Ichimaru Jin smiled and said, I'm not being pointed at a knife. Captain Aizen, are you okay? Tosen was about to pull out his Zanpakuto and said seriously, be careful with the enemy in front of you, Ichimaru. Suddenly, the smoke activated by Aizen's fiery lightning howl was quickly knocked back. Tuju tore open the smoke and said, it's surprising, Aizen Sosuke. In an instant, he adjusted Kidō who omitted chanting to this point. You are capable beyond my imagination. It turns out that the fiery lightning howl fired by Aizen just now adjusted various values. The effect of the fiery lightning howl is to release a blast with thunder and lightning, but Aizen adjusted all the values of the fiery lightning howl just now to the flash of lightning. Aizen naturally knew that ordinary thunder and lightning explosions could not have a real attack effect on opponents like Tojo Ayaya, but an unexpected full power flash could, at least allowing Aizen to get rid of Tushiro's iron hoop-like hand. Tushiro thought, he is indeed a boss-level figure. Aizen, who was still in the Shinigami period, had the highest Kidō attainments. As well as being steady and sophisticated with silver coin attributes and flexible battle ideas, he can escape even when the numerical gap between the two sides is so huge. Aizen looked at his wrist that was almost pinched by Toshiro, let out a long sigh, and then looked at Toshiro in front of him with extremely solemn eyes. This enemy in front of us cannot be underestimated. Chapter 45 Kyoka Suigetsu fails. The eyes of the Spirit King that see through everything. Deputy Captain Daocheng, although you hold the position of Deputy Captain in Team 13, but looking at it now, your strength is more than that simple. Aizen kept his whole body alert, wary of Daocheng. Second attack. Aizen looked at Daocheng solemnly. Through the previous confrontation, Aizen had a rough estimate of Daocheng's strength. To Aizen's opinion, Tojo's current strength is stronger than Yamamoto Genryusai Shigekuni, who is said to be the strongest in 1,000 years. Naturally, he is stronger than himself who has not yet completed Hōgyoku. Can't you use force to subdue him? You can only use Kyoka Suigetsu. After thinking about it, Aizen slowly pulled out his Zanpakuto from his waist. At this time, Daocheng said calmly, "You finally drew your sword, right? Captain Aizen." Aizen lowered his head slightly, a mysterious smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and the reflection of his glasses made him look particularly gloomy at this moment. After watching Aizen's movements, Harribel yelled at Espada colleagues, "You have forgotten Lord Tojo's warning. Close your eyes when this man draws his sword. You must not open your eyes during this process." Quote. Aizen paused after hearing this and looked at Daocheng more meaningfully. The man named Daocheng in front of him really knew his information. But since he knew his information, why didn't he close his eyes? Is it because he was proud? Now, we can declare the end of this contest. Aizen swung the sword in a circle, pointing the sword downward, so that Kyoka Suigetsu's hypnosis ceremony could be seen in full view of the Sword City. Aizen raised the Kyoka Suigetsu in his hand and said, "Sword City Vice Captain, there are not many people with your strength in the entire 3 realms. But it is inevitable that they will become prisoners of the flower in the mirror and the moon in the water. It's cruel to fall completely at the feet of illusion, but this is reality. I see, complete hypnosis's Zanpakuto. Control the enemy's 5 senses, that is, the posture, shape, texture, touch, and taste of a certain object which can be Kyoka Suigetsu itself to a specific target." Toshiro said slowly. "But, you forgot one thing, Captain Aizen." Aizen asked doubtfully, "What do you want to express?" Vice Captain of Daocheng. Illusion and reality, just like light and darkness, are interdependent. The best way to crack the illusion is the reality that is close at hand. Under every stage built by illusion, everyone is a lonely dancer. Touchy looked at Aizen and said, "For example, isn't it very close to cracking your complete hypnosis?" Tojo's eyes stayed on Aizen's Zanpakuto, and Aizen instantly broke into a few drops of cold sweat. The man in front of him actually knew how to break his Kyoka Suigetsu. Aizen secretly comforted himself. Toshiro had been captured by Kyoka Suigetsu and became a prisoner of Kyoka Suigetsu. When he can control the opponent's 5 senses anytime and anywhere, Tojo can never touch his own Zanpakuto. Tojo's eyes immediately left Aizen Kyoka Suigetsu's blade, and a smile appeared on his lips. A drop of cold sweat dropped from Aizen's chin, and an unpleasant premonition arose in his heart. Tojo may be able to break Kyoka Suigetsu's complete hypnosis without touching his blade. Under this premonition, Aizen made a thought and created a picture of himself launching Kidō against Daocheng. Toshiro looked at Aizen in front of him, and suddenly a Shunpo rushed up and came to him, raised his hand and said, "Hado's 90 black coffin." Daocheng still smiled, and in an instant he activated the power of the Spirit King's eye, the all-knowing eye that sees through all illusions and truths, and the past and future of the 3 realms. After Tojo activates the eye of the Soul King, the picture of Aizen rushing up to use black coffin is as fragmented as a glass scroll, and the real world is clearly reflected in front of Tojing's eyes. After Aizen created the illusion of attacking Tojo, he saw that Tojo in front had no reaction and was not affected by Kyoka Suigetsu at all. The whites of Daocheng's eyes turned black, and diamond-shaped patterns were reflected in his eyes, which seemed to contain the power to see through the entire world. Advertisement. Aizen looked at Daocheng's eyes and said in surprise, "What is this?" Aizen felt from a hunch that Tojo was immune to Kyoka Suigetsu's ability, mainly because of these weird eyes. At this time, Aizen really felt uncomfortable, a feeling of being one step ahead of him all the time. He felt that everything about him was known to Sword City, and combined with Sword City Arrancars technology, he was sentenced to death by the upper echelon of Soul Society. Aizen couldn't help but think of a man, Urahara Kazuki. Is there really any connection between Urahara Kazuki and Tojo? How did Aizen's information get to Tojo? How was his Arrancar technology realized? As long as Tojo Ayaya and Urahara Kazuki are tied up, Aizen seems to be able to understand everything. Aizen was thinking in his mind. Put the conflict with Tojo on hold for now, and use means to seize the time and completely force out Urahara Kazuki's whereabouts in the present world. Urahara Kazuki. What do you care about me? Tojoki Ayaya. I have read the script. Toshiro smiled and said, "How about it? Captain Aizen, do you have any other moves?" Seeing this, Aizen gathered his spiritual pressure and put the sword into its sheath, saying, "Vice Captain of Daocheng, please forgive me for what I said wrong before. With your strength, you are more than just a captain." Although Aizen's information was seen through by Tojo, his expression immediately returned to his previous state, trying his best to look calm. Toshiro Ayaya saw that Aizen had the intention of acting, but did not tell him. Instead, he acquiesced in Aizen's acting skills and pretended not to notice it. I don't know what level Aizen's acting skills have reached. He has been pretending for hundreds of years. I believe this is also a very difficult thing. The title of the #1 actor in Shinigami is indeed Aizen's fault. When Tosen Konami and Ichimaru Jin saw their boss sheathing their swords, they also took back their own Zanpakutos, but their vigilance remained unchanged. Arrancars Espada, who was originally facing off on the Tojo side, put down his Zanpakuto when he saw Tosen Konami and Ichimaru Jin closing their swords. In the blink of an eye, with Aizen's temporary surrender, a battle that was about to break out was eliminated. Afterwards, both sides chose to stop fighting and choose peaceful negotiations. Toshiro and Aizen were sitting behind a stone table, Toshiro and Aizen were sitting at two ends, while Espada, Tosen Konami, and Ichimaru Jin were seated in 2 rows on both sides. Toshiro Ayaya sat on the throne, with her hands crossed and always smiling, looking at Aizen as if everything was in her own hands. Seeing Master Tojoki facing Aizen and the others without saying a word, Espada didn't speak either, just waiting for further instructions from Ayaya Tojojo. Aizen looked at the silent attitude of Ayaya Tojo and his subordinate Espada, and was determined to break this lonely scene. Aizen took the lead and said, Deputy Captain Toshiro, I don't think there is any need to be secretive now. Regarding the attitude of Soul Society, I think our goals are basically the same. Toshiro pretended to be very interested and said, Oh, what do you think? Captain Aizen. Chapter 46 Aizen compromises. The third Hōgyoku appears. Aizen said slowly, the three of us came to Hueco Mundo without the approval of Soul Society's senior management. Our intentions must be well known to the Toshiro Deputy Captain. That is to defeat the Gotei 13. I believe this. Captain Tojo and I both have the same goal. After listening to Aizen's words, Daochung also fell into thinking. At this point, Toshiro and Aizen do have some similarities. But in the end, Aizen and Toshiro are very different from each other. Aizen's purpose is to find Hōgyoku and use Hōgyoku to destroy his own boundaries and achieve evolution. Then, by building the King Key, he entered the Spirit King's palace and brought down the Spirit King, who was aloof and nominally dominated the 3 realms. Aizen's fundamental starting point is that he doesn't want to be under the control of something, so he hates the existence of the Soul King from the bottom of his heart. But the purpose of Daochung does not care about the Spirit King. The Spirit King is just a wedge to the world. The only thing that Daochung is interested in is the Spirit King's power. Ever since Daochung possessed the eyes of the Spirit King, from these eyes, Daochung has deeply sensed the unfathomable power of the Spirit King. Will such a character really be sealed by the crystals of the 5 nobles in ancient times? Although the fundamental purposes were different, Toshiro still nodded to Aizen's proposal. Seeing that Toshiro agreed with Aizen's idea, Espada who was sitting aside couldn't sit still. Especially Harribel, an old subordinate who has been with Daochung for about 200 years, knows that Lord Daochung's purpose is always to counterattack Soul Society and overthrow the ancient order of Soul Society. However, Tojo was still Shinigami who defected to Hueco Mundo after being sentenced to death by Room 46. But Aizen and the others are now serious captains and powerful members of Soul Society. Why would they betray Soul Society for no reason? Aizen continued. Although our ultimate goals may be different, we all regard the Gotei 13 as our enemies. This is undeniable. Aizen said to Toshiro. You possess the fundamental power of Hueco Mundo, and the 3 of us serve as captains of the Gotei 13. As long as we fight together, there will be no obstacles ahead for us. Although Toshiro knows that Aizen cannot be trusted, Aizen still plays a large role in the original work. If Aizen and the others are rashly dealt with, the Soul Society will definitely become suspicious of Hueco Mundo's movements. But if Aizen is left alone, the movements of Toshiro will be leaked by this old silver coin, although Toshiro has a way to erase it. After much thought, Tachi finally agreed to Aizen's request for an alliance. Although these 3 require some action from Kaoru Toshiro to monitor, they are still not enough for the overall strength. Toshiro Ayaya pondered for a moment and said, You are right, the Gotei 13 of Soul Society is our common enemy. Hearing Daochung say these words, Aizen also laughed, and the 2 sides laughed at each other for a while. The 2 silver coins looked friendly on the surface, but in fact they had made countless plans in their hearts. After some discussion, Aizen and Toshiro both believed that now was not the time to attack Soul Society. After the 2 parties exchanged pleasantries for a while, when Aizen was about to leave with Tosen Konami and Ichimaru Jin, Aizen suddenly remembered something. Aizen asked Daochung. Vice Captain Daochung, I have always had a question. Daochung smiled secretly in his heart at this time, already knowing roughly what question Aizen had been curious about. Advertisement. Aizen said. As far as I know, some of the undead cannot ascend to heaven due to their nostalgia for the present world or other obstacles, so they linger in the places that attract them. A special part of them, after years of sorrowful torment, may be trapped by the outside world. Accelerated by factors, it will eventually degenerate into nothingness. Tojo pretended to be confused and replied, as this basic common sense that Shinigami must know. Why does Captain Aizen want to ask this? Does Captain Aizen also have a lot of research on hollows? Aizen pretended to be ignorant and laughed at himself. How can such a thing happen? I am the captain of the 5th Division and the captain of the rescue team. How can I know about research on this kind of thing? However, Shu has it represents the emptiness inside them, and the mask that will cover their face is their characteristic. I just want to know where the masks on them go. Toshiro couldn't hold back anymore. He was indeed the most veteran actor in the Soul Society. Who would believe that Aizen was just an ordinary rescue team captain, and deny his scientific research ability, then 80% of his brains would be kicked by a donkey. Hueco Mundo's autonomous Arrancars have been very rare for thousands of years. With so many Espadas in front of us being Arrancars, it's impossible for all of them to be autonomous Arrancars, right? Aizen probably guessed that Tojo had a substance similar to Hōgyoku that could destroy the boundaries of the soul, so he asked this question. Daocheng guessed Aizen's intention and said, "What do you mean?" After speaking, a small bead suddenly appeared in Daocheng's hand. As this, Aizen could no longer pretend to be as calm as before. Tsunayashiro actually had a Hōgyoku in his hand. Ichimaru Jin and Tosen Kanami on the side also knew the importance of this small bead to Aizen, but Aizen did not express his position and they could not act. Aizen looked at the small bead in Tuchi's hand, forcibly stabilized his emotions, and pretended to be surprised and said, "Is it possible for so many Daxu to gain such power with just such a small bead?" At this time, Daocheng saw that Aizen was still pretending to be stupid, and he immediately felt very funny. Unexpectedly, Aizen, who was so pretentious in the original work, actually has such a side. That's true, there's nothing strange about it. Daocheng said, pretending to be relaxed. Aizen asked tentatively, "In that case, can you let me hold this small bead in my hand and observe it?" Vice Captain of Tocheng. Of course, Captain Aizen. Tsunayashiro didn't seem to care about the value of the bead and handed it to Aizen. Aizen saw that Hōgyoku, whom he had always longed for, was treated with such an attitude by Tojo, and his disdain for Tojo suddenly surged in his heart. He actually despised a divine object that could break the shackles between mortals and gods. It seems that this person nothing more than that. Aizen carefully took the Hōgyoku, placed the small glowing bead in his hand and observed it carefully, for fear of missing every detail. After Aizen confirmed again and again, Aizen has concluded that this is a genuine Hōgyoku. Although it is also in an incomplete state, there is no doubt that this is a real Hōgyoku. Aizen suddenly had the idea of snatching it in his mind. But when he thought of the strange strength of the Sword City, and that it was located in Hueco Mundo Arrancars base camp, doing so at this time was tantamount to suicide, and Aizen calmed down the idea of snatching it. Aizen calmed down and returned the Hōgyoku to Doho without any emotion on the surface, saying, "Is this the legendary thing that can make Daxu evolve? This little bead is really magical, don't you think so?" Daxu City Vice Captain. Seeing Aizen's moment of confusion just now, although Tsunayashiro has been in Hueco Mundo for 300 years, he still couldn't help but laugh when he saw Aizen like this. Tsunayashiro followed Aizen's words and simply said, "Yes, I didn't expect this bead to have such an effect." At the beginning, Aizen seemed to have discovered a blind spot in Tsunayashiro's words and asked, "So, Vice Captain Tsunayashiro, how did you get such a magical bead?" Chapter 47 Aizen's design. Creating Zubi is in progress. Aizen is still very curious about the origin of the Hōgyoku in Tojo's hands. He never imagined that a third Hōgyoku would appear now. Reminiscent of Tojo's previous judgment that he knew his intelligence very well, Aizen subconsciously felt that Urahara Kazuki might have a certain degree of connection with Tojo Ayaya. This seems to be a reasonable conjecture, and it can connect all the problems together. However, this judgment was immediately rejected by Aizen himself. Judging from the time period when Sword City became the King of Hueco Mundo, Sword City obtained Hōgyoku and Urahara Kazuki developed Hōgyoku, and Aizen imitated Hōgyoku was basically in the same time period, and Sword City's time was even earlier. Did Tojo Ayaya also develop Hōgyoku by herself? Aizen had a guess in his mind. "So, Vice Captain Daocheng, how did you get such a magical bead?" Aizen expressed his doubts to Daocheng. Now, the most important thing is to figure out the origin of the Hōgyoku in Tojo's hand. Seeing how much he valued the Hōgyoku in front of him, Tsunayashiro couldn't help but feel a little amused. This Hōgyoku was obtained as a reward from the system, so why should he tell Aizen seriously? However, even if he told Aizen, Aizen would definitely not believe it. Instead of doing this, it is better to follow Aizen's words and make up a few random sentences. Daocheng said, "This is something I accidentally discovered when I was experimenting with the fuzzy soul in Hueco Mundo. I found that injecting the soul fragments into it will make this small bead more and more complete. It wasn't until 100 years ago that I completely mastered the power to break the mask." Hearing this, Aizen has no doubts. Hōgyoku was invented by Urahara Kazuki, the former captain of the 12th Division. Urahara Kazuki's Hōgyoku is different from Aizen's Hōgyoku that took Shinigami's soul. It was created based on absorbing a large number of hollow souls, but Urahara Kazuki's Hōgyoku has also not reached the level of maturity. In fact, Aizen had already begun to invent Hōgyoku, manga 416, TV 308, before Urahara. He collected the souls of hundreds of Shinigami and Rukongai people with Shinigami talents for experiments, but the Hōgyoku developed in this way still could not be completed. Body. From this, in order to obtain Hōgyoku that broke the boundaries of Shinigami itself, Aizen planned for hundreds of years for the Hōgyoku in the hands of Urahara Kazuki. Just to combine the two incomplete Hōgyoku into one, to obtain the perfect Hōgyoku, and thus truly escape from the realm of ordinary Shinigami. Aizen knew that the Hōgyoku in Tojo's hand was definitely real, and it was not the one in Urahara Kazuki's hand. He didn't expect that there was a person who created Hōgyoku in the past 100 years. Aizen thought to himself. However, it seems that Tojo Ayaya in front of him is not very good at using Hōgyoku. He has never been able to discover the true effectiveness of Hōgyoku. He is just using it as a tool to make Daxu Arrancars. What a waste of resources. With that, Tsunayashiro and Aizen finished their pretense of politeness. Aizen took Ichimaru Jin and Tosen Konami and walked out of the Hueco Mundo King Hall where Sword Castle is located. Aizen is still thinking about the series of things just now. To be honest, coming to Hueco Mundo this time has given him a huge shock. A mysteriously powerful Tojo Ayaya, the terrifying power of gathering Daxu into a legion and collectively achieving Arrancarization, and the third Hōgyoku in the three realms. Under a shadow of Zai Palace, three Shinigami wearing captains Haori stood. Captain Aizen, are we going to return in vain this time? In that case, there is no point in us sneaking to Hueco Mundo, Ichimaru Jin said with a smile. Tosen wanted to see Ichimaru Jin speaking in such a needless tone again, and scolded, Ichimaru. Aizen-sama is still thinking about the problem. After Ichimaru Jin saw it, he quickly said, I'm sorry, Master Aizen, what should we do next? Or should we just return to Soul Society like this? What? How can you say there is nothing gained this time? Aizen put his glasses up and said, although the original goal was not achieved, I saw a lot of things that I aimed for. It's interesting, what can you do with Tojo Ayaya? What kind of surprise will it bring to the entire three realms? Tosen stepped forward to ask for instructions. Lord Aizen, regarding the previous Daxu experimental subject. The original intention of going to Hueco Mundo this time was to capture a suitable individual. Advertisement. Aizen waved his hand and said in a nonchalant tone, yes, don't worry. Since we have obtained so much information today, it is not too late to collect a final sample before leaving. Ichimaru Jin revealed his eyes slightly and said, I just made an agreement with them, and then I turned around and robbed the subordinates of the Tojo vice captain for experiments. Is this really okay? Aizen threw out 3 black robes and said with a relaxed smile, who would have known it was us? You think so? Silver. Black cloak. Special clothing that can completely hide the user's spiritual pressure, preventing other Shinigami from sensing the user's whereabouts. Originally created by Urahara Kazuki, after Urahara Kazuki escaped from Soul Society, Aizen copied the black cloak into 3 pieces for future emergencies. As expected of Captain Aizen, he thought so thoughtfully. My name is Zhang Yadong, and I am an ordinary student from China. He is an ugly fat nerd who likes to play games with beautiful girls and harass the girls in his class when he has nothing to do. One night, because Genshin Impact failed to draw the wife he wanted, he suffered a heart attack and died suddenly at home. Because of my obsession with beautiful girls, my soul has been lingering and never dispersed. Finally, one day, after being superimposed by certain factors, I turned into a void. I became a virtual queen, with a round body like a pig, and a pig head mask on my face. Unlike me who was a dead otaku when I was a human, I have powerful power after becoming a hollow queen. Because my personal obsession is too strong, I have existed as a great hollow from the beginning. Finally, one day I came to this place called Hueco Mundo. The Daxu here are all very powerful guys. If it were before, I could only live by licking other people's leftover food, and I would have to always be wary of other Daxu coming to devour me. However, when I came to Hueco Mundo had been completely transformed by the new king of Hueco Mundo Tojo Ayaya 100 years ago, and it was no longer the chaotic devouring state of the environment before. I survived the transformation of Arrancars arranged by him, successfully broke my mask, obtained my own Zanpakuto, and was given a number by Lord Tojo. At this moment I feel that I have reached the peak of my life. Until, I met these 3 men in black robes in front of me on a narrow road. Aizen looked at the weak Arrancars and only put his hand on the Zanpakuto, but he was so frightened by the pressure Aizen released intentionally or unintentionally that his knees weakened. Ichimaru Jin asked doubtfully, Captain Aizen, if it's an ordinary test product, this shouldn't be up to standard, right? Aizen corrected Ichimaru Jin. What I mainly look at is the quality of the soul. Whether the character is strong or not is not within my scope of consideration. Who knew that Tojo Ayaya did a good job in screening and strengthening, and I didn't need to its time to find a suitable Daxu. Although his spiritual pressure is weak, the strength of his soul is no longer that of an ordinary Ichuka's level. Zhang Yadong tremblingly looked at Lan Ran's stretched out hand, but he was completely powerless, but unable to make any resistance. Aizen didn't care at all and said calmly, let this pig-headed Arrancars be the body that I use to transform Daxu in my experiment. Chapter 48 When Zubi is completed. Shiba takes action with all his heart. In the dark laboratory, the purple light reflected a gloomy and terrifying luster on the complex experimental machines. Sudden, on the rows of experimental equipment, the pieces of meat soaked in red potion were still shrinking regularly, and gases were coming out from time to time. Hunt, buzz, the iron door of the laboratory behind opened automatically, and Aizen came to this dark laboratory wearing Captain Haori and wearing glasses. Aizen walked closer and said, what's the result? Ichimaru Jin, with a thick local accent, turned around and said, yeah, I don't understand it at all. Tosen turned his chair around and replied, based on the pig-headed Arrancars that Lord Aizen captured from Hueco Mundo last time, he stuffed the Shinigami soul into it for transformation, and successfully turned it into a Vastad-level Daxu. With this as the main body, it has been equipped with the ability to make the target virtual, but the souls of the members of the Gotei 13th team cannot even withstand this power. Really? Aizen's glasses reflected the eerie light and said, it doesn't matter, the location of Hiriko Shinji and the others is gradually becoming clearer. This will not only lead them out, but also complete the virtualization test. This is simply killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Ichimaru Jin said with an uncertain tone, Captain Aizen. Then, won't you make preparations for Tojo Ayaya of Hueco Mundo? Aizen Sosuke said in a deep voice. Don't worry, Tojo Ayaya's strength is amazing. Any conflict with him now is irrational. Our first target is still the living Hiriko Shinji and his group, as well as Urahara Kazuki. Once you get Hōgyoku, everything will be easy. Yin, Yao, everything is in the palm of my hand. Soul Society, the 10th Division Team Building. A short man with silver hair and green eyes, wearing a death battle uniform and wearing the 10th Division Team flower logo on his chest, handed a stack of information to the current 10th Division Captain Shiba Izshin. The short boy said, the papers have been taken care of. Seeing that he had subordinates who could complete the work perfectly, Shiba happily hugged the short Shinigami and said happily, it's really amazing. Toshiro, you are worthy of being the next captain. At this time, the yellow-haired giant girl Matsumoto Rangaku who was fishing on the side couldn't sit still and objected on the spot. Wait. In terms of rank, shouldn't I be the next captain? Shiba expressed his disapproval of her proposal. What are you talking about? If someone like you becomes the captain, the 10th division will be completely disintegrated. Hitsugaya Toshiro also nodded and agreed. Yes, Bankai, I am also practicing. I think there is no problem for me to be the captain. When Matsumoto Rangaku heard that Toshiro, who was still the chief officer, actually spoke to the vice captain like this, he couldn't help but stepped forward and grabbed his cheek and started to pull it. In this way, the two people pulled each other's faces like an adult and a child. Toshiro, why are you following the captain's nonsense? Shiba Izshin quickly smoothed things over and said, that's it, okay. After saying that, he opened the door of the cabinet next to him, looked at the empty cabinet, and then said doubtfully, oh. You saw what I put here before. Have you got any buns? Advertisement. Toshiro turned around, put on a serious expression and said, Captain, there is a report here that I am a little concerned about. This is it. Toshiro gave Shiba a report about the mysterious death of Shinigami in the present world. Shiba Izshin still pointed to the empty cabinet and said, No, let's talk about the buns first. Did you see the buns I hid there and plan to enjoy them? Toshiro patted the table and said dissatisfiedly, it's so annoying. Steamed buns and stuff don't matter at all, right? After finishing speaking, Toshiro burped uncontrollably and said, thank you for the hospitality. Sure enough, I was eaten by you. You still want to get away with it like this, what a little villain. Shiba said very unhappy. Toshiro ignored Shiba Izshin's teasing at this time. He turned to look at the report in front of him. Do you still remember the report 2 months ago? Shiba Izshin seemed to suddenly realize that something was wrong. Toshiro continued. The location is a medium-sized city called Naruki City, and the mysterious death of a responsible Shinigami. Shiba put his hand on his chin and said, this is what happened, and the reason is still under investigation. Yes. Then Toshiro handed the new report to Shiba for review. This is the report that was just harvested. 2 people died last month. Former Shinigami. Hamahashi Kojira. Died accident. Yoshiyama Kaide. Died accident. After seeing this report, Shiba couldn't sit still anymore and ran outside. Several consecutive Shinigami have died abnormally in this world. There is definitely something going on here, and they are targeting these Shinigami. Matsumoto Rangaku shouted anxiously. Wait, where are you going? Captain. Go and investigate. Shiba stretched out his hand to show his moves and said, I'll probably be back the day after tomorrow. Then I'll leave the work tomorrow to you. Matsumoto Rangaku couldn't believe the nonsense of his captain, and said, go alone. Leave now. What are you talking about? Aren't you going to report to the captain? Captain. Let's go after Toshiro. Matsumoto Rangaku turned to Toshiro and said. Although Toshiro looked like a child, he was very judgmental and said, no, there is no need to chase. The captain thought this operation was too dangerous, so he went alone. Matsumoto Rangaku said anxiously, then this will make it even worse. Toshiro couldn't refuse and said, that's it, so we should wait here. Chapter 49 Fierce Battle in Naruki City. Shiba Izshin vs Inatatsu. In this world, Naruki City. The clouds came out. How annoying. It seems that the people before and the people before that all died on rainy days, right? Don't say that. In the sky above Naruki City, 2 Shinigami stationed in the real world were communicating with each other in the sky full of complaints. Really, rainy days are very dangerous. As the 2 Shinigami were flying, they suddenly heard voices coming from behind. It's a good thing to hear this. The 2 Shinigami couldn't help but look behind them and said in surprise, Captain Shiba. Why are you here? Shiba Izshin said with a humorous tone, I was looking for the toilet, so I got lost. One of the cast members, Shinigami, couldn't help but complain, this lie is too false. Shiba said wholeheartedly, if it rains today, you should go back. Shiba's expression became solemn and he said, you will prevent me from peeing. The haze in the sky gradually gathered. The originally dark sky was shrouded by clouds, like a black cloth covering the black background. Above a building, a strange figure in black and wearing a pig head mask slowly stood up. Darkness shrouded all around, boundless terrifying darkness. Naruki City Stadium, South Gate direction. There was more and more haze in the sky over Naruki City, and it started raining heavily in an instant. It was as if someone had put a layer of gauze over the dark city. Shiba stood on the roof intently, alert to everything around him. The rain is starting to fall. Is the target the Shinigami itself? Or will it react to high spiritual pressure? Shiba held the hilt of the Zanpakuto with all his heart. First use the spiritual pressure to seduce it, let's try it. Golden spiritual pressure quickly exploded around Shiba Ishin's body, and the rumbling, continuous spiritual pressure continued to sound. So strong. As this Captain Shiba's spiritual pressure. Shinigami, the two extras who stayed downstairs to hide and watch the show, praised. Just after they finished their words of praise, the heads of the two Shinigami were suddenly cut open from the middle. Ah, ah, ah. Although the two sidekicks were killed immediately, the painful screams they made at the moment of death were still captured by Shiba, who was standing on the roof of the building. Shiba looked downstairs anxiously, only to see two pools of fresh blood. Shiba said angrily, "Damn it. Didn't you react to high spiritual pressure?" Boom. A black figure suddenly landed behind Shiba Ishin, and the smoke and dust stirred up slowly surrounded his body. This is a tall, fat, man, with white hair, a black luster all over his body, and a pig-shaped mask with sharp teeth on his face. He suddenly roared like a wild beast. Black Hollow. After seeing the enemy, Shiba tensed up and observed the opponent carefully, trying to find any loopholes. Advertisement. I see. Even though his whole body is pitch black, the big hole in his chest is blocked by something. But there is no doubt that this guy is Shu. The black-masked Daxu let out a roar, and rushed towards Shiba as if he had discovered a new prey. HMPH. Shiba Ishin's Zanpakuto was blocked by the sharp blade of the black-armored pig-headed Daxon. Shiba Ishin keenly discovered that the fighting method of this pig-headed Daxon was very similar to Shinigami's swordsmanship. It looks like a hollow, but its moves are Shinigami's. It's really tricky. Accompanied by the roar of the pig-headed Daxu, Shiba was unable to stop the Daxu without Shikai's Zanpakuto. He was unable to resist his powerful power and was instantly knocked away. Just when Shiba was knocked away and his body flew out upside down, another sidekick Shinigami came behind him and shouted loudly, "Captain Shiba, Karakura Town is the jurisdiction of the 13th Division." Looking at the clueless members of Team 13, Shiba Ishin quickly shouted, "Don't come over." Buzz, buzz. After gathering spiritual pressure between the eyebrows in front of Zudu Daxu, he fired a powerful purple flash. Boom. The innocent 13th Division support Shinigami was directly hit by a false flash, and lost his life in less than a second. Shiba put his hands in front of his eyes to block the smoke and dust raised by the big pig head in front of him, and said, "What was that just now? Is it a flash of light?" At the same time that the pig-headed Shu was launching an attack, Shiba discovered the flaw, jumped up high and swung his Zanpakuto, and slashed hard at the pig-headed Shu. The pig-headed Daxu sensed Shiba Ishin's attack, turned around and stretched out his right hand. The black armored blade on his right hand collided with Shiba Ishin, making a crisp sound of ding. Shiba Ishin and Anoto Daishu were wrestling with each other. Shiba Ishin said, "It's impossible for a monster like you to make such a big fuss without being discovered by Soul Society. Who ordered you?" Faced with Shiba's single-minded inquiry, Zutaku just roared in response. Shiba narrowed his eyes and said, "Can't you answer?" Climb. With the strength of Zutaku, Shiba walked to the other side in a heartbeat, adjusted slightly, and Shikai fired his Zanpakuto. Burn it, Engetsu. When he was liberated, he condensed a large amount of spiritual pressure on the sword to release flames. The attack power of Shiba Ishin's Zanpakuto was greatly enhanced, and he gathered the flames in front of him and rushed towards the pig-headed hollow, trying to use this move to solve the pig-headed hollow in front of him. Just when Shiba focused on controlling the flames, he swung the knife straight towards the pig head in front of him. Brush. Suddenly Shiba Ishin's rear was attacked. Shiba Ishin groaned in pain and fell weakly downwards with the flames of his Zanpakuto. Hidden behind him was a man wearing black robes and glasses, Aizen Sosuke. Behind him were two men in black robes, following him on his left and right. The black robes completely obscured their bodies, or as an even spiritual pressure, achieving perfect invisibility. Shiba Ishin couldn't tell that there were three people standing behind him, watching his fight from the beginning. Shiba carried the flame with all his heart and rushed towards a building. A deep scar was cut on his back, and the blood stained Shiba Ishin's Captain Haori. Shiba Ishin was suddenly seriously injured. He slowly stood up from the rubble and said in disbelief, "The sword just struck was a Zanpakuto. It was a Shinigami. There is a traitor behind the scenes." Zubi, made from the pig form Arrancars that was transformed from Sword City Ayaya. Tojoki Ayaya has already elevated his soul to a higher level through Hōgyoku, and then I forcefully inserted a large number of additional Shinigami souls to cause his second evolution, thus bringing him to a whole new level. The whole body is wrapped in black armor, but because of the white inside, it is named Zubi. It's really ironic. Aizen whispered quietly and calmly in the sky. Chapter 50 Destiny is determined. What is the live broadcast show in Daochung's eyes? In Naruki City, the battle between Shiba Ishin and Inataku is still fiercely going on in the sky above this city. Shiba was stabbed by Aizen, and it was even more difficult for him to deal with Zutaku by. After several sword fights, he was easily forced back by Zutaku's black hand knife. Zutaku roared again, sending Shiba Ishin flying with his sword. The more Shinigami he swallows, the faster Zutaku's self-strength will grow. Every time he swallows a Shinigami, it means that Zutaku's technology will improve by 1 point. The seriously injured Shiba lost to Zutaku several times in a duel of strength. He was thrown into the air and shouted, "Stop looking down on people. B asterisk 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 D." Shiba Isshin bit his palm open in one bite, and blood flew out. Shiba Isshin used his own blood to forcefully burst out a more powerful flame. Ah, 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 Shiba roared with all his heart, condensed the flames on the knife into a piercing posture and rushed towards Zutoksu. Boom! Shiba's single-minded strike triggered a huge explosion over the city, and the echo of spiritual pressure filled the entire town. In this huge explosion, something quickly fell from the explosion and was inserted in the middle of the street. It was a sharp blade on the black arm with a white pig head. One of Zutoksu's arms was torn off by Shiba on the spot and fell down, smashing an innocent building to pieces. Shiba Isshin's Zanpakuto was still burning with flames and Inatoksu's hand sword, but the intensity of the fire had been reduced a lot compared to before. Shiba Isshin gasped and said, "I broke one arm, but I can still move around, I have some skills." At this time, Zutoksu raised his head, and purple spiritual pressure gathered in the center of the mask again. Damn it! Shiba's eyes froze when he saw Zutoksu gathering spiritual pressure, and his expression flashed with panic. At this distance, his Zanpakuto was still resisting each other. Coupled with the damage caused to him by the sneak attack just now, he could not escape the lock of false flash at this time. And I had seen the power of the opponent's false flash before with my own eyes. At such a zero distance, if I took this false flash without any precautions, I was destined to be wiped out. Whoosh! Suddenly a spirit arrow shot towards Zudu from a distance. Although the attack power was not great, there was no doubt that Zudu virtual flash was directly hit by this arrow during the gathering process. It broke, and the high-density purple spiritual pressure that had been successfully condensed collapsed again. Shiba Yixin. He quickly looked back, wanting to know who had shot the arrow to save him. I saw a girl with orange hair and short side-parted hair standing in the middle of the street. She held the spirit bow and pointed it at Zutoksu. Shiba Yixin Nanan said, "Who is she?" A trio of spectators on the other side. Aizen, who was standing in the sky wearing a black robe and hiding his whereabouts, said, "Quincy." Dong Xian, who was standing next to him, helped up his black robe, bent down and said, "It's an unplanned target. I'll go and eliminate it right now." Wait a minute. Aizen stretched out his hand to stop Tosen Konami's advance, with excitement gleaming in his eyes, and said, "Take another look." After discovering the existence of the orange-haired girl, Zutoksu suddenly gave up his entanglement with Shiba and quickly rushed towards the girl in the middle of the road. This guy. When Shiba saw Zutoksu rushing towards the unknown girl, he anxiously wanted to stop him immediately, but the wound on his foot was involved and he couldn't move for a while. Seeing Zutoksu approaching, the girl with short orange hair was not timid, but fired hundreds of spirit arrows at him in an instant. However, how could the Quincy's ordinary arrows hurt the high-level transformation Daxu? The pig-headed Shu moved around in the air and avoided all the launched spirit light arrows. Next, under Shiba's surprised eyes, the girl actually chose to disperse the spirit bow when she was unable to hit the pig-head Shu. Advertisement. Idiot, what are you doing? Shiba watched anxiously as the girl used her body as bait. She stretched out her hand towards Zudu, as if a loving mother was calling her child. Under the residual light of the street lamp, she seemed to be emitting a sacred light. Not only Shiba Isshin, but also Aizen, who was watching the battle from the air, was also shocked by the sudden movements of this Quincy girl. The pig-headed man let out a strange cry, rushed in front of the girl, and bit her shoulder in one breath. The orange-haired girl stroked the pig's head like a baby and said, "Okay, I've caught you now." After saying that, she created a very small Spirit Sun short bow in the palm of her right hand, and fired the spirit arrow at Zutoksu's head at close range. Zutoksu's head was instantly penetrated by the Spirit Sun light arrow, and Zutoksu's body also slowed down. Fall slowly. Suddenly, Zutoksu's body suddenly began to expand rapidly, and the red meat bulged high as if it was about to explode. Orange-haired girl. Just when she was about to hit the pig head at close range and self-destruct this time, Shiba rushed over quickly and hugged the pig head Shu, and at the same time opened the spiritual pressure shield forward to prevent the girl from being in danger of the explosion. Boom! There was a powerful spiritual pressure explosion that could be seen 10 kilometers away in Naruki City, and the fire flew straight into the sky. The flames quickly dissipated and the smoke screen receded. Seeing that the Shinigami in front of her was so seriously injured trying to save herself, the orange-haired girl ran over quickly. As she ran, she said with concern, "Are you okay?" It hurts." Shiba Isshin slowly raised his head, looked at the girl and said, "Thank you, I'm saved." The orange-haired girl said apologetically, "It was you who saved me. It was because you were protecting me that you were so seriously hurt." When Shiba heard this, he laughed and said, "Then we don't owe each other anything." The orange-haired girl squatted in front of Shiba Isshin and said, "I'm here to help you treat him, but don't move." Shiba Isshin then asked about the girl's origin. "However, you can kill that guy alone." "Little sister, who are you?" After hearing Shiba's question, the orange-haired girl seemed a little confused, and then she closed her eyes as if thinking about something. After the orange-haired girl opened her eyes again, she replied firmly, "My name is Kurosaki Masaki, and I am a Quincy." The rain continues to fall in Naruki City, and the torrential rain washes away all traces here. Suddenly a raindrop in the sky stopped, as if the stop button was pressed during the video playback, and then the screen stopped. Zai Palace. Toshiro Ayaya, who was lying on the throne, slowly opened her eyes. The whites of her eyes began to change from black to white, and the diamond pattern in the center slowly receded, gradually transforming into Tushiro's original black pupils. Tojo Ayaya turned off the follow-up monitoring of the battle in Naruki City with the Eye of the Soul King, because there was no need to look further, he already knew the outcome of the battle. I see, even though I did so many things in Hueco Mundo, Aizen's trajectory is different from the original. But the overall wheel of fate has not changed. Toshiro sat up from the throne and muttered to himself. Is it destiny?